You're live.
All right, thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. I want to welcome everyone this morning to our meeting. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order, and I will lead us in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all. Before we open for a motion to approve the agenda,
Madam Chair, I make that motion to approve the agenda.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. All right, first up for discussion is our maintenance plant facility and summer projects.
So Madam Chair, we've been invited Mr. Soderquist to come and present these. I've asked him to put together a list, a visit with the different supervisors and administrators to get a list for summer projects. So we do have, Larry, you're welcome to speak from there. You're welcome to come around in camera.
I think I'm pretty good right now.
Come on, man.
I'll take your place, guys. Okay, if you look at the paper, the first column over there is all the projects that I think we need to be done. The second one is what I would consider more of a priority, and the third one is more reflecting of what we have the budget for. So all the yellow ones are the ones that I think needs to be done. Now, anybody could change any of these. I mean, this is my priority list, and I've talked with all the principals, Mr. Hadley, Lisa at the lunchroom, and but just because I have them as a priority doesn't, I mean, you guys could make it another one more of a priority than me. And then on the second, so the second column is the priority that I think we need to work on getting done. They're more of a priority, and like I said, the third one is more reflects how much money we have right now to spend on them.
What's the difference between cost A and cost B? Again, is that?
One is what I would like to get done
Mhm.
as a priority, and cost B is what Patty told me we have money for, and we're actually over a bit there too.
So if you go down to the bottom of B where it says 165, my understanding, and Larry, chime in if your understanding is different on that. The plant facility that we get is $300,000 every year for plant facility, and we budget about $100,000 of that to go directly to buses every single year, and so. So we roughly have about 200,000 that's in a plant facility, but when we plan for a summer project, the fiscal year ends right in the middle of the summer. And so we kind of have two budgets to play with. Is that kind of what you kind of look at,
Right,
Larry, as well?
right.
So we're looking at that when we look at this number of 165,000 for the projects that we have money for right now, that's a little bit higher than what we have right now. We could probably get most of those, and I think about 130,000 approximately, or
Patty and I kind of decided 125.
125.
Would be a safe thing, and then we could go above that a little if we needed to.
So the 125 is what we could really just boom hit hard to start off with. But then if we went over that, what that would do is just cut into the next fiscal year's allocation for plant facility. And then it's also important to remember that we do have, what do we want to call it, a rainy day fund. There is 200,000 that's in plant facility that we count as zero. So we already have 200,000 saved up for a rainy day. So if we spend all this down, we're still at 200,000. So that's.
And then $75,000 of the money too is for my miscellaneous. That's what I have to do throughout the year for supplies and fixes. So we don't really have a lot of a big extra.
Right.
So question,
Wow.
so if we pass the bond, would we, that 425 wish list, would some of that come out of that?
Yes.
I-
It's-
If we're gonna do a bond, I personally would really want to go for the 900,000. Cause like I say, all of these things are things that need to be done. I just had to figure out a way to prioritize some.
Sure, and you've got other things that aren't on here.
Oh, yeah, you could add 100 things to this.
Are we scheduled to buy a bus for this coming year?
We were talking about that yesterday in our administrative meeting, and we really should buy a bus every single year.
Last year we didn't, isn't that right?
Right.
And so
And
if we don't, we're gonna get behind on schedule.
Right.
And I think the buses are running about, what, 85 or 90,000?
Is that what you saved the 100,000 for?
It was 2 years ago that we didn't buy the bus. We
Okay.
got one last year.
Okay.
And my understanding is that if we get 8 or 9 in a row,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe skip one. That's the thing is there's just a little bit of wiggle room on there, but we don't want to get into the habit of skipping that. And so we talked about that. Patty and I were going to follow up with Mr. Pincock and see one of the bus that's really right now on the list would be the 06 travel. It's not really a travel bus, but it's a yellow bus. And Mr. Pincock was explaining this yesterday, that the rules have changed. Like everything changes in anything. But with transportation, they used to, they want to get a push away from schools buying their own big non-yellow travel buses, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so initially, if you bought a bus and used it for activities, they wouldn't reimburse you the full amount. They'd only reimburse you part amount or the amount that you used it when it was on a route. He mentioned yesterday in our admin meeting that they've changed that regardless of whatever you use it for, the reimbursement rate would be the same. And so I think in 2006, when they first purchased that one travel bus, that was the rule, and now the rule has changed. And so he just mentioned yesterday that we could look into purchasing one, but he hasn't explored it more than that.
Mhm.
And that's something that before the next board meeting, I'll visit with him and we can get that even on the agenda. If he proposes that we can put that on an action item. But then we'll just look and say, okay, does that come off of next year's or this year's? And so, because we're looking at the plant facility in the middle.
And that money that returns from the buses that they pay should go back into the plant facility every year, so it helps pay for the next bus. So we're not paying it all the way.
So when you take that 100,000 every year for the buses,
Mhm.
so that buys the bus, but whatever's left,
Goes to maintenance.
Yeah, I think the state reimburses what, 85%?
Yes.
okay.
But they do it over time, so it's not a direct, it's not a
Not a lump
direct,
sum.
no, it's not a lump sum. It's not a direct rebate.
Mhm.
So it's over time. That's where Larry and I were visiting yesterday, is it gives a perception that you're saving money, but it's just basically trading money is what we're doing. But as we look at these projects, are there anything else that the board would like to add or see? I know in past meetings, we've talked about the water fountains before. There could be, just for transparency with the board, we will be getting another sum of COVID money. But right now, we don't know what that's going to look like because the legislature is trying to decide what our budget's looking like. And it appears like JFACs and they're looking to see how they could use that COVID money to leverage really what they give us, which is really frustrating. And if you have a chance to visit with your representatives, it's really frustrating because the federal money on any federal program, there's a phrase called supplement, not supplant. That all Title I special ed any money coming from the federal government that goes to schools is supposed to supplement and help and not supplant or take place of. And when we get audited, we have to show that everything's a supplement. So even with the COVID money that we spent before, that's all a supplement, not a supplanting. And so sometimes it might just be how you label it to make sure that it fits the rules and regulations. But right now it feels like the legislature is basically trying to figure out a way to make us supplant the money they want to give us. And so they're going to reduce our discretionary money, thinking that like, so if we were supposed to get 100, but you have 25 COVID funds coming in, they're figuring out a way to say, well, let's take away 25 from here and just put that in there so you're still getting 100. So in their mind, they're thinking, yeah, you're getting 100. We've restored you. But the money, this 25 can't be used dollar for dollar. It has to be used in different ways. And so they're really creating a shell game for us when it would really be more beneficial to schools to use the COVID money the way that it was designed to do things like, which we've done right now, is we've increased our infrastructure with technology to prepare ourselves for remote learning if that were to ever come about. The funds could be used for something like water fountains, say this is all going to come back, for water fountains, for safety and sanitation to help reduce COVID spread and things like that. So, but right now we don't know. And I just wanted to bring that up since we're talking about projects. But as Mr. Soderquist has said in the past, the plumbing and everything else to do all water fountains, quite difficult, right, Larry?
Yeah, we might be able to put another one in the high school because the one fit right in, but every time they added on, they chose to do a different way. And so the PE building is totally different than the others. And to the best of my knowledge, I can't find any brand that will fit on the plumbing that they have
Without modifications.
without modifications to the building.
So that was one that I do remember that we've talked about as a board. Other thoughts or questions or?
Larry, I see that you've got on the Hammer re-roof and then the gym, the high school gym re-roof. So it looks like you've got the yellow on the Hammer over the high school
Well, like I
gym
said,
roof. Can you comment on that a little bit?
the Hamer one's in way worse shape, age-wise, than the new gym one, but the new gym one is not in good shape either. So, and I was explaining to Mrs. Rigby that we've replaced a quarter of the roof that's over the gym once before because the wind pulled all the screws out. Well, the wind has loosened that part of that up again too. Plus, the other part that we didn't fix is now getting pulled up. So that's why I said I had to prioritize somehow. Yeah, in a perfect world, we should be doing all the things on the list. But the Hamer one is rotted out. It needs to be replaced.
So it hasn't been replaced probably in decades,
25 years.
25 years.
They were putting a new one on when I came, so.
That's 28 years, isn't it? 94,
96.
96.
So which part of the Hammer roof did we just do?
I would call that the old part, the original building, so that includes the entryways and the gym,
Okay.
that down over the bathrooms.
Here,
So
I
is
can
that more in the middle of the building?
I can show you here.
Well, it includes, it's the east half.
East
Yeah.
half.
How do I unshare, Mrs. DeGraw? Oops. Yeah, unshare me for a second. Just so I can find what I need.
What are you planning? Well, like,
Let me just pull up, since we're talking about Hamer roof. Um, go to facilities. Oh, there it is. All right, we can. There we go. And share again. Sorry, guys. Okay, so here's the Hamer campus on that. So this black part is no longer black. So these satellite images were done before we remodeled. So this was the part that was done.
2 years ago,
Yeah,
including the library.
including the library, which is right here. So those were updated already. So this part right here is the part that Larry's talking about. And I'll tell you what, I hate heights, but I went up there just to check it out to make sure. And this was definitely like if anybody ever questions that, oh, you guys made the wrong decision, like not even a question. That it's like a trampoline up there. It was, there's so much that just came off of it. But this would be the part that needs to be replaced.
That's the bigger part of it, looks like.
Yeah.
And I did get, so the price you have there is off of a quote they gave us a while back. So it's fairly close, but of course they said we can't keep that for very long. And if we were to do that, we'd probably have to put it out for bid.
Yeah.
So it's probably gonna be a little bit more.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, they gave me the price just like a couple weeks ago. So
Oh,
it should be fairly close.
Well, between the roof and the lunchroom, that is a big chunk of our budget. And it's frustrating to me because that's not very many kids. And it's 2 items off of this entire list.
Mhm. And one reason, though, that it's that way is because it's been pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. And because of that, it does feel like a big chunk. And people could say the same thing about fixing the PE building as well.
But how many people use that though?
Well, there's lots of people that do use it, but it just depends on who you talk to as well.
Sure.
But when you look at that amount, now there's a lot that needs to be done. I wonder if we just really start attacking cost B the best we can, because we can't control whether or not the bond's going to pass. And maybe we should have had the bond discussion right after this one on the agenda, just to see, because that's where, if we're going to jump back and forth, bonding for $1 million to cover all of that is going to cost us on impact about the same as if it was a bigger project. The only difference is the term, the amount of time that it's being spent. And that's going to be the part where, as I discussed during PA meeting as well, when it came to bond and projects, these kind of overlap, and you can stop me if we don't want to discuss the two, but really they're all a financial approach. What do we do? There's always going to be something that we have to ask the community for. That's just not going to go away. It's unrealistic to think that I am going to come up with a plan that it's a self-sustaining plan without asking for things from the community, unless you guys have that. There's always going to be something, but if we do build more, then there will be a cost increase on other things. the maintenance will continue, it just gets bigger until we start taking things down. But I don't know the time frame on, I just don't know if there's a time when we say this is gonna be built and everything else gets taken down. And I'm not talking, and I was blunt during POM meeting, I'm not talking Hamer School, I'm talking about like parts of these buildings, or if we build a new home ec room, are we gonna take the home ec room down? You know, those are the types of things that we have to look at. And I don't know,
Can I make a comment? If we're going to bond for some of these things, we need to do it in a way that we're pretty sure it's gonna pass, because the failing of the last bond and the interim between when we did the last bond and when we could have done another bond is basically put us 3 years down the road. That if we would have done something that we were sure would have passed, we could have been almost through that period already. And if we bond for something that's questionable again, then we won't get the money again, and then this list will just keep growing and growing and growing. And that's my opinion, but we can kind of see how it's happened already. Because if we would have bonded for $1 million this last time and it would have got approved, then these would be off the list. And then by the time we got through spending the money, it would be time to do it again. But if we're taking chances that it may or may not pass, this list just keeps growing because the plant facility can't sustain it.
It really hurts us when we miss a bond.
Right.
It does.
And these kind of projects, let's just say we were to pass another bond for another building, these kind of projects, after that bond is gone, they're still here. They don't go away. And so then we would have to try to pass another bond to cover these things.
well, we're gonna have to pass a bond regardless.
Well, I know, but I'm
Like-
saying we would have to, if we, let's just say the plan you have now, we pass that, in 5 years, this list is still going to be here.
Mhm.
And then we'll have to bond again for this list,
And we would have to bond regardless of whether it's a big one or a little one.
but then we wouldn't have two, we would only have one bond instead of two bonds. Because one bond will last for 20-25 years.
Or what if you bond for $1 million?
Yeah, is $1 million
Can you
realistic?
go come
to
back
pass?
the next year and try for a bigger one?
You could.
There's nothing-
So what,
No law against that.
here's what they would do. Instead of having two separate bonds, you roll the bonds together.
Right.
And that's a discussion that I had during PAW meeting, that if, I might as well just pull it up.
Do other districts do that where they'll roll them together?
Absolutely.
Did you get the feeling?
Like bond, so let me look at the bond discussion. So this was the discussion from the last 10 years. The last 10-year overall levy, which is our bonds, levies, plant facilities, is right around $3.50. Or that's per 100,000 or 350 per thousand. So if it was 350, there are some school districts that will do this every single 5 years. And what they do is they call up their banker and they say, how much more can we borrow to keep the levy rate the same? And that's what they do. And so regardless of whether we do a million now just for the remodels, we're gonna always have to probably, like every 5 years, we're gonna have to ask anyway. That's how I'm understand. That's how I'm understanding.
And I agree with you on that.
Like, and so, but I guess, and I don't disagree with Larry on this one, it is riskier to go for a bigger project, because if it doesn't pass, that's the
Don't get
part,
the small one
Then we're
That-
down the road again.
that's the part where I lose sleep, because I'm thinking, what is the right thing to do? But this,
Well, did you get the feeling? No, I don't know how many people were here.
we had about 10,
10? Did you get the feeling they're worried about the future?
one,
Just one?
just one.
Nobody else said anything?
Well, everybody's, and I don't mean this rude, you guys have more experience than I do, Nedred, Willie. Has there been a time where it was just like, man, let's just go for this and build? Or has there always been a little bit of a worry?
A little bit of a worry.
I think there's always been a little bit of worry. And I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna try to downplay COVID and a Democrat president, you know, and because that's one of the things that everybody's worried about.
It is.
So what do we do? Like,
I don't know. I'm thinking, should we get the million in our pocket and then try again the next year for something?
that's what we've done for the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's what we've done for the last 10 years here.
Larry, do you think $1 million is realistic to pass?
Yeah, I think it would. I think, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, if we were just doing remodels, we're good with it.
But why though? Why just the remodels? What is it that we're so scared of to build in the
To
future?
build new structures. Why are people scared of that?
The
What
money.
people are telling me is we don't need another gym.
There's a difference of opinion that we have to figure out. And it's not a gym. Like, if there was some other facility we could put in there besides a gym, the next step to building a high school is, like, if we're ever going to have a high school, somewhere somebody has to take a chance and do this.
How many gyms, how many feasible gyms do we have to practice in
Right now,
and play in?
1.5,
Okay,
1.5.
But the others
So
are
I-
practice gyms though, right?
We have the main gym.
Okay.
The old gym, where if we're practicing, because we're practicing now 2 teams per time.
right.
And have we done it before? Yes, we've done it before. This gym here is not a high school practice facility gym. When I say this one, I mean here in the ALC.
Yeah.
But it does have a wood floor and it has 2 baskets. But it's not
But your little kids can practice.
Yeah, it's more suitable for your grade schoolers.
for the grade schoolers. The old high school gym, when we repurpose that into a commons, is going to take away its like effectiveness, but it's even small to have 2 teams practicing in that at one time. And we have we been able to do it for years and years and years? Yes. But back when Willie was in school, they didn't have 3 teams playing. They had 2 teams playing for
Mhm.
boys and girls.
We actually used the gym over here in the grade school.
That's not a gym.
Well, we used it.
That's a little small room with 2 hoops in
Yeah,
it.
we used it.
Because if that's the case, everybody's driveway is a gym.
Mhm.
Like that's like,
Well, and come spring, when you have your softball and your baseball that can't go outside, they have first dibs on any of the indoor facilities to practice in. And if you have any club teams that are looking to practice, they're kind of out.
so I don't know. It's one of those things that, yeah, the gym might be the thing that some people are like, oh, if there's a gym, I'm gonna shut this down. But tell me a different plan. Tell me a different plan that we can use if we're going to. I guess one plan is we don't even talk about this. We don't even talk about the new classrooms or the auxiliary gym and the place where you can go to the bathroom at the football games and things like that, without it being in a porta potty. This doesn't have to happen because we haven't ever had it.
Well, what if you just did the classrooms and the bathrooms?
So if we just did the classrooms and came straight out and left a big giant hole right here
Yeah.
and came out here and made the other things right there, that doesn't make sense when it comes to construction.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
would, I would agree with Mr. Williams on that. We don't want another little team offshoot of. Yeah, because that's that's kind of what we've had all along is every time we want something, we add another little niche or something there. I would,
Well, I was just thinking maybe another year, the next year you could.
Every year we wait though, the kids that are currently attending this school have
yeah.
another year
I
that they don't
agree.
get to
I agree.
have a newer
Yeah.
facility. You go to Rigby, you go to Madison, you go to Idle Falls, everybody's growing, moving and
Mhm.
shaking. There's nothing wrong with changing things up a bit because growth is progress.
Mhm.
And we all want to grow. And it appears that this school is just reuse.
Yep,
But
we're kind
what's
of
the
in a
sense?
stalemate, aren't we?
Yeah. What's the sense in putting $40,000 into a chemistry room upgrade?
Well-
If the new facility would have new classrooms that would support that.
I would
better.
rather put the money into something new.
But that's where the predicament is. I think some people are gonna say, yeah, I agree with you on a science classroom, but I disagree 100% because you're even mentioning a gym in there.
I was just trying to point out the mindset of the public, of the people. That's what I really think it is. Oh, we don't wanna, it's a shaky time, we don't wanna put our money into a gym, another gym.
Yeah, but the longer we wait, the construction
That's-
costs keep going
That's
up.
not necessarily my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I'm
So-
thinking
so this-
that mindset is
So
there.
this plan right here is not a way to say, oh, Shane, you played basketball in high school, so you probably just want extra gyms. Well, let's buy 5 gyms then, you know, and put them, that doesn't make sense. What I'm trying to present here is I feel like our district has been an afterthought ever since it was part of Rigby. And they said, well, we'll just put this here, and if you grow, we'll add a little building on here and a little building here. And we have grown. And some people are just gonna say, but maybe we'll never grow again. But the building will expire at one time.
Mhm.
If we stay at 600 students for the next 50 years, the building is still going to expire even if we stay, even if we don't grow, the building is going to expire sometime. And we need to have a chance to be able to say, when is this, if we look at the new gym, which is 25 plus years old, and say that that is the foundation for the new high school, we really need 2 or 3 other steps beyond that to complete a new high school, to replace it. And so this is a 50 to 75 year plan. So if this was built brand new and this was 25 years old, we're the next stage to build on right now. And if we build classrooms, and we can even rethink about this, these classrooms don't have to be the same. Maybe we even look at other classrooms so we can start tearing some stuff down. But eventually, in 50 years, we do the math, we're probably not, there's a chance all of us aren't here in 50 years. Nedra, you might outlive us still on that one.
Yeah, good.
But 50 years, I'm in my 90s. And in 50 years, we're looking at the kids who are in kindergarten, their kids are the ones that are, like, this is a decision, not just for now. It's what are we gonna do for the next step? But if we just just say, let's just keep remodeling what we have, this is, you know, and it's not completely, I don't disagree with what Larry's saying on some of the things, because it's a scary decision.
Mhm.
It's a tough decision to make. But when do we do this? When do we wait for times to get better to pull the trigger on this one? I don't know, because in 50 years, these classrooms would be ready to be taken down. And that would be the time that this part gets built. And when that's built, then you have a high school that's replaced. We've built on and we've had a place for the high school. And we still would have to remodel these other old buildings. And that's why every 5 years, a bond would have to be run to be able to continue that process. If we can find a tax rate that we can be able to maintain, that's what I would propose. Maybe that is just doing a remodel bond right now, because we don't want to have to go through the stress of having the conversation with people who hate the idea of a gym. Like that's really the only thing it is right now. We either get a big one right now and start building for the future, or we just keep going limping along and push it off to the next people to have that
How
conversation.
you have to sell it.
Well, I don't know, I'm not trying to
It's
sell it.
Building for the future, we have to sell it.
Well,
But you could put all classrooms in there instead of a gym.
we could. Right now, we could go in
You
there
could
and
put-
build all
you could put
classrooms.
Classrooms in there, and almost, I don't know how many would fit in there because we don't have real plans, but you could put enough classrooms in there potentially. Not use any of the classrooms over there. I don't know.
And then just have a vacant school right here for the next 20 years.
What's your current need, though?
Well, when you say what would currently be used more? Okay, so right now we have, again, 20% of our student population drives over an hour to get here to school. And we have junior high kids who wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to a 6 o'clock
I
practice.
know, I know, I know.
Mhm.
If this was available, then they would be able to maintain with the afternoon, the practices in the afternoon. That wouldn't
Yes,
take away all morning practices because there probably still would be some type of thing, but it would allow it to not have to be used afterwards.
I think this is a good plan, but it's gotta be sold
Mhm.
as being the, how did you say it?
Well, this is not just
It's
for
a
the
building
future.
For the future, yeah.
Like this is, how do I even name this attachment? The 50-year plan,
50-year plan.
like,
Mhm.
which is included, and we're already 25 years into it. So it's actually should be a 75-year plan for a new high school. And it started in 1996. That's because there's no way we're going to have a new high school.
Right. Well,
But if we wait until that time in 50 years, oh no, what happened? Oh, the school got old. We have to tear it down.
Mhm.
But maybe those people that are scared about the future right now, maybe they want their kids to have to make that decision. That's the part where
well, it just felt to me like when you were with the PAW people, I wasn't here, so I didn't see their faces or their
I
side
saw their
comments.
faces.
You think it was just one person?
I didn't think it was everybody. There were one or two that were concerned about the farmers and the commodities, and that's true. They have legitimate reasons to be concerned. That there's different things that it's going to impact trade. There's different things that it's going to impact. But does that mean we wait till it's perfect? It wasn't perfect 2 years ago,
Right.
and there was a different dude in charge. I said, dude.
Sheriff.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I noticed on here you have remodel art room and a price tag of $40,000, and it's in all of your columns and it's highlighted. How does that remodel take precedence over like your high school main roof or your blue gym roofing?
Because we've been promising that teacher that for years and years and years. And like I said, all of this list, all of it is subjective. I mean, if you guys wanted to, you could take any of these things and put them over here and take some away.
Mhm.
And it would be like, well, I don't disagree. But the room that she's in for art was never an art room. It was just a classroom. So she has needs that she doesn't have stuff for. Now, I'm not saying she can't do without, but it's a whole different, it's not it was never built as an art room. And all of these prices, I tried to go on the high side, maybe even quite a bit. So we wouldn't be sticker shocked or disappointed if it came in.
So if you asked for that $5,000 bond,
Or
is that
$5 million?
From
I mean,
$5
5 million, gee. I was looking up there and seeing.
Yeah.
Would there be room to do most of these projects in
Mhm.
addition to that?
There would.
Oh, you've got it up to 75 now.
So there's this one. These were the rates. These were the rates that Zions gave us in December of 2020.
Mhm.
And remember, every time I bring that up, it's going to be reflective of where they're at. Unless things change drastically in the next 4 or 5 months, the interest rates are actually the lowest that they've been
Mhm.
for the bonds. It's really
I know.
there's a lot of benefits to getting a bond
Mhm.
and perks to it. Jeff, can you close that door?
Yes.
Thanks. But even if it was like a $7.5 million bond for a big project, you're still less than what we were in 2015
Mhm.
by a long ways. It's just what I heard on some of the last projects that I guess the feedback that we had from the last bond that failed. One is that the project just didn't feel right for the future. It didn't feel like it was a plan to build to the future. The post-bond survey is very similar to what the election results came out to be. It was 59.7% in favor, so 60%
Mhm.
of the people that they wanted something new. They wanted us to build the future. Then there's 25% on top of that were what Mr. Soderquist is saying is, let's just do remodels. Let's just do remodels and upkeep because your school's not growing. Why do you want to make things bigger? Why do you want to do things if your school's not growing? That's kind of the mindset that some of them have. And some of those might also be anti-sports facilities. For whatever reason, there's just not enough people that are doing it. And then there was 7%, whatever, 6 to 7% that said we don't want to ever get taxed. And so
How much of your student population participates in extracurriculars?
about 70 to 80%.
So a facility with a gymnasium of whatever kind, auxiliary gym or whatever, would be utilized by the student
And
population.
the community would
It's huge.
would utilize it. The last couple weekends, and again, this is just basketball. Last couple weekends, we did have little tournaments that we were able to run. Another facility like that could be something that we increase that. You know, there's just different things. If you have a facility that allows for that, the football field, for example, is one of those that was really controversial when it came out. You'll have some people that will probably to their dying day, like want to fight that. But it's been an asset to our community. It is always green. It is always ready for play. We have even
Not just the field though, the track
Tracks.
facilities.
We bring in track meets.
the track meets, which we've never been able to do
Mhm.
before. But on the old grass field that we had, we never got to practice on that. You didn't practice on the football field because like
Worn out for
it'd be worn out before the game days. And by the time you have potentially 3 grid kid teams, 2 high school teams playing on a facility, there's a lot of upkeep that comes to that, but it's been a good investment on that one. And so if we look into the future with something like this planned, the next step, would this be an investment to the future? Probably. Will there be some people that are against it? Yeah, but there's some people that are still against the football field.
I think
There's
they
probably still some people that are
always
against
find that.
the new gym. Remember the new gym?
Yeah, the new gym's not new anymore. It's 25 years old.
But there are people
Can
that,
we name it?
Let's rename it.
Official.
Do we remember how
Official
much
old
the new
gym
gym?
now.
it was like 2 million,
So,
2.1.
I mean, I know 25 years down the road, it's gonna cost a lot more. Maybe double that. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you added like this facility. So why wouldn't you expand still more? Go for 4 or 5, build what you're saying there.
Like the whole thing?
Yeah.
Partly,
And
I know-
really that's
I know what
more
the-
cost, it's more cost effective that way. And that's
Well,
why
that's
I'm
what I
saying,
but-
don't just build a classroom. Don't build one classroom, because the next time you add on, you're gonna have to dig that part of the stuff to
Well,
start
it's-
over again.
If we're starting, why not, excuse me, finish that?
so when you
I
say,
know that's a big, huge project, but
so when you say finish this area right here,
fill it with classrooms and whatever, whatever else we need in it.
The problem becomes then, what do you do with what we have? I mean,
yeah,
in my opinion,
yep, I agree with
it-
that.
it's not to the point of it's no good. I think it's.
That's-
What about like your old section in your elementary that was,
The boilers
You
there.
can't tear that down because the boiler's in there that feeds the whole.
right?
And building wise, it's probably stronger than all the rest.
So that's a good question, Tyson. So if I'm understanding, if the logic follows, if this is good, why isn't this right now? And it goes back to, we're not quite to the crossroads of to say goodbye to the high school area. Like it's still 25, 30 years down, like we can still lifespan on those classrooms. And that's where this plan would put us right in place for the next one.
And unless we come up with another heating facility, the the boiler does the whole high school.
Yep.
And so we can't, unless we start from scratch, you can't tear that
Yeah,
down.
you can't just abandon half of it.
No.
Larry, when buildings do get torn down and this starts to rip down, could they, if you left the boiler up and intact, like, so this is going to be a discussion for 30 years and down the road when none of us are going to be here. But could you come in and take out the library and the teacher lounge and tear that stuff down to start moving over and leave like the old gym in place, but tear everything else down around it and the
You could,
boiler?
because the steam pipe to the new gym goes a whole different way. It goes underneath Panther Park and stuff. So that's kind of separated out.
So that's like, so if you're looking here on
But
the,
if you're keeping
goes there to
like
down.
Don's and John's, that's part of the infrastructure underneath the building to do that. The home ec room gets
Mhm.
its heat from there too. So
could the ag facility still stay in place and start tearing down part of the high school? Or would
now
you
we
have,
just have to be careful not to ruin the way the heat gets over there. The heat, the internet, the everything, the
Mhm.
bills. It could all be done.
Yeah,
What if you put the classrooms and then bring the ag,
over here.
those two classrooms like John Hanson's and,
Those still could, you still could put those right here.
no, put them up where the gym is? Would that entice people to, would that be a better thing for the
I don't know
future?
where now, Nitra.
I don't know, it'd be good to have it sandwiched between there.
No, you wouldn't want them. You'd want an ag room.
By itself?
It's not
Separate
even,
because they're in there welding and you got fumes and stuff and you gotta have ventilation.
You're gonna have to have access.
I don't think you want a welding room next to classrooms, you know.
Okay, well, they're not hooked, are they?
no. Now that's where this whole conversation is like, so tell me what's better to put here right
I'm just
now.
throwing that out.
I know, but that's exactly what every time I brainstorm, I don't know what else to do right there.
Mhm. But it isn't attached, so is it gonna be a problem with?
No, this will be attached.
It'll be attached. I
It
don't
will.
think it-
That's just,
Yeah, you wouldn't have gaps there.
So,
That wouldn't make sense, right, Larry?
no,
You'd want to have a hallway at the back of the building.
that would be kind of a
So
hallway.
that'd be hallway, yeah.
Yeah. This is not the architect's rendering. This is
I
just,
see.
this is just my little,
I
put a
see.
box on a map.
Yeah, well, it's not bad.
I feel like we almost need a decision on the bonds before we can really tackle this.
We can with plant facility with this. So there's certain things with when it comes back to the maintenance projects. It's just,
Well, I'm wondering, do you ever get donations for things like your sound system for your football field? For minor upgrades like that, where it's 5,000?
those could be things that, like a booster club or somebody could.
Does the bank ever donate? Because I know like Westmark pitched that they would donate Rigby $100,000 to just have their name on the scoreboard for this season.
Yeah, and I know that
So
bigger schools, I think, have better options to that. Right out here, we have one bank.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they feel like they get hit up that's the part about, we're so small.
What about class project or class gifts?
Oh, like alumni
Yeah, like the
gifts.
graduating
and
class.
for
how much?
smaller stuff like that, to at least get that accomplished
Yeah,
in the
like
meantime.
6,000,
Yeah.
1,500.
Yeah.
3,000. Could they put their money towards that, or do they?
They always could, but we can't force them to.
Oh, I see, they get a choice. Maybe you could give them a list of things they could do.
Suggestions.
But-
I wouldn't.
So again, like today's not a day to make decisions. Today is just a day to ask questions, and we'll come back to that. But Madam Chair, if we could probably finish up with Mr. Soderquist on this, and this has been good that we actually included him on the bond discussion, because he and I, we've talked about it before, and we can see that there's pros and cons both ways. And though I don't disagree with some of his thoughts, because they're both correct. They're both correct when it says, on one hand, should we do something that's safe? But is it really 100% safe? Because some people will feel very strongly that we don't try for it. And it's not like it's tough. It's one of those things that really what it needs to come down to is, what do you as a board want to see done? And you guys make the decision, and we will go with it. So,
Make one comment. Mr. Williams and I, we're very blunt with each other, so we know what each other's opinions are. And I'm blunt with you guys. I'm not gonna hide anything. But when, just because I may not be for something, if you guys vote for it, I will do my very best to make sure it's as good as we can get, because for me not to do that would be dumb. So I just want you guys to know that if you vote for something, I'll do my very best to make it the best.
and I appreciate that. And it's the same with me in my role. It's there's certain things that we will recommend certain things. And that's a healthy relationship in a school district, because if everybody thought the exact same way, that wouldn't be healthy. But we're able to sit down and visit and see the different pros and cons and move forward. And that's the part where, if we wait for 5 years, yeah, maybe it's safer for some. But I also, from the PAW meetings, as I listened to, and I pointed at Andrea, because your comment about, well, what about the kids now? If we're going to do it, let's do it. And so that's where after that one PAW meeting, it was the PAW meeting in December where that came out. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, it would be easier for me to not have to have a conversation and have people from the community come in and say, Shane, you're so dumb because you want a gym. It's not that I want a gym.
It's that we need a gym.
Well, I don't even know if we need it.
Well,
That's the thing.
do we want kids getting up at 5 a.m. to practice?
But we would use it.
That's not healthy.
That's the thing, is in the 50 to 75 year plan, we would utilize it like crazy between now and the time that the new high school is built. But if we wait for it to be completely all there, we're all going to be gone, and it's going to be too big of a bite to a piece to bite off of to attack it with what we can do. So
I think we all agree we need a bond. We just got to decide what dollar amount. What's going to fly?
So the timeline for a bond would be an August vote again. We could at this point start bringing in the architect and the construction manager, and in March and last year we got derailed with COVID, not being able to have meetings. But I think we start having more community meetings, surveys, just so we can see that this is a 50-year plan. It's not a plan right now to just get this. It's what's the next step for the future. And that's kind of where we're at with the crossroads.
We probably should try to get the bond for this August vote, because the legislature is talking about doing away with the August vote option.
Which would, again, if you can talk to your representatives, is not very.
They're talking about August, it. So after this August, maybe we're not going to have that August.
An August bond vote is better for construction than any other time, because after a bond is passed, then your bond lawyers have to get together, sell those bonds to generate the money. And that takes a couple of months to take place. And then the projects, the construction managers, not the remodels. The remodel stuff, Mr. Soderquist could handle all of our remodel things. But anything that requires a certificate, and what else are like?
Well, engineering and stuff like that.
Engineering, those types of things, those projects all get bid out during the winter, and that's the best time to bid out to everybody. Because if you're trying to bid out for things during the summer when everybody's already going, they're so much higher.
Would it be better for the community to see phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of our 75-year plan. And this is just phase 1 and we need to get going on it in order to,
Yeah, I think that could always be helpful. There could always be renditions made by an architect to show that this is kind of what we're planning to
so
do.
that they know we're not just plopping this down here and that's our future plan. Our future plan is not that, it's that it's a part of this.
And then, but
It's the
that would have to be
first
part of
phase.
it, but the next part of the plan would have to be that every 5 years, that would have to be rebonded on
Mhm.
to have enough money to take care of it.
So we did, the next phase would be part of this, or is that your idea, or?
The next, so the classroom phase, like for the high school,
Right.
I think that's 50 years out.
You do?
Mm.
I do.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I really do. Maybe 30 if I'm trying to be sooner, but
Okay. So this part is gonna be old and dead by the time this other part is.
that I don't know what else to do because we can't build, we can't bond for 40. That's the hardest part about making a decision like that in this district. And it's just because of the bonding capacity.
Mhm.
If you did a chunk every 25 years, at least we have something all in one section, whereas, which one? When you look at this building, was just added on to every, 5-10 years. They would put different things on to grow.
Another thing you have to realize too is we're only talking about half of the school here. We're only talking about high school. We're not even talking about
Yeah.
this part over here.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's where something has to happen. So just because we're not talking about this one doesn't mean we shouldn't ignore it all. And that goes back to the whole circle of, should we just maintain? But if we just maintain, eventually you're going to get to the point where the building is expired.
Mhm.
Do you have a certain time limit on schools where they do hit that expired point?
It's just when there's
Mhm.
no longer, it's no longer worth putting money into it. And like Larry said, the two oldest buildings we have probably have the best structure in the district.
They used to build better.
That's,
And I drove past Lincoln Elementary the other day, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's over 100 years old, and they still use it.
Was then playing ball with the kids, it's in pretty good shape still.
And that, the reason our buildings are the way they are is because the board's been good about letting us.
Well, and then we've had good maintenance crew to keep them up too.
yeah, we have.
Mhm.
So
But I don't know how you have the discussion of prioritizing this list with things like remodel the chemistry room. If we're anticipating going for this bond and doing the science rooms,
mhm.
I think we have to make the decision. Are we gonna do it? Are we gonna do the bond and what for? And then have this discussion.
That room would need to be remodeled no matter what. Now, if it was just a classroom, it wouldn't cost as much because we wouldn't have cupboards and stuff like that.
Right.
So it would cost less.
That's probably why you put it on the not emergency list.
But you have to
Right.
decide what's gonna be on our bond. Are you gonna put, let's just be honest, are you gonna put Hamer roof on there and get those Hamer votes for the bond? Or are we gonna pay for it out of our plant facility? Which is better? I know it needs to be done. So.
I think you do have a plant facility.
And I disagree. I think you try to get those votes.
You could put the kitchen on the other.
Will you get the votes
Would
though?
you have the pushback
think
though?
so.
If Hamer roof is on there or Hamer upgrades at all,
I think
people
they're,
would fail the bond
From some other
from
areas.
other areas.
Mhm.
That's the part where there's so much, let me just say it, bitterness and things that people are holding on to from 1980 that they're bringing it up to say, I'm so mad at Hamer for what somebody did or something happened or somebody said about this or that. if that's what you want to do to destroy something, go for it. But we also have the same people, Andrea, that are going to say, if there's a gym, I'm going to vote no on it, no matter what.
Right.
Or if you don't have a gym, I'm not gonna vote for it.
And then you're gonna have some people say, you're not thinking for the future. You're just trying to put a Band-Aid on old things. I'm not gonna invest in that.
Some people talk like, why are we remodeling? We ought to be buying.
Okay, then we
Building
have to
new.
have some
I've
kind of
heard
a
that,
campaign that
know.
includes all that. A perfect.
Perfect world.
Like, how do you
Capture
to
everyone.
bring everybody together?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Bring us all in. I don't know. I think the last bond still had more support than it didn't.
Mhm.
That's the thing, that's even with all of the uncertainty in a pandemic, it had more support than it didn't. And if there were 35 voters that flipped,
And you
it would
think-
have passed.
You think that the lunchroom was what caused that?
I just don't think it was a project
Okay.
that everybody could really see into the future
Okay.
and say, this is really the best use of it.
It would have benefited, but not
It-
like
It
this.
would have benefited in a way, but because that failed, we're rethinking and taking the feedback from people from that.
And do we have any plans for the lunchroom? Like, I know it has to be updated, so. that
Yeah,
we have-
their lunchroom is actually on this list as well.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, let me find. Does it just say lunchroom, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah, remodel lunchroom.
Second
It's
page.
Yeah,
Top one.
lunchroom.
There it is. So,
Okay.
and that's one that Larry has
Okay.
as a focus on that. So Dennis, what was your thought then on why a bond instead of plant facility? Help me understand
So the Hamer-
that. Just for a vote, just to say,
If you don't give them something, why would they vote for it?
well, here's the thing that
Because they come out here too.
as I've come in, and I've got to remind people, I've been here for a year and a half on this job. I've lived here, but I've worked in another district. And so I haven't been on the ins and outs of all the different discussions that I sometimes joke and say the PTSD feeling that we have every time we talk about Hamer. But the things that I picked up from some people, and this comes from different boards. You guys weren't all on these boards, maybe you were. And it's not fair for past board members to come in and say, well, we did this, or we promised this, or we did, or the one community meeting where everybody was really mad at everybody, probably a couple of them. But one of the statements that came out was, well, the board promised this, and they promised that they'd fix the roof, and then they never did it. But what happened, I don't know, as I went back and looked at that, it was probably discussed in a meeting like this. And then people saw this, that it was discussed. And then when you go to vote on it, just because it's on this list here, doesn't mean you can get everything done. There's a priority list, even with a bond, that you start off, and when the money's gone, the money's gone. And so I don't know what the right thing is to do, but I would hope, I wish people were listening. I don't know how many people are even on. There's probably nobody. But I would hope that people would look and say, how is it running since this board and this superintendent have been working together? Like, we have not done anything that we haven't been transparent on. I've talked about from the very get-go about what we want to do and try to accomplish. And it's not because of a political reason that I'm trying to just like sneak different things in. Like this board, and since I've been here, are we perfect in everything? No. Do we make maybe decisions that aren't the best? But I don't think we have the best intent in place. And if Hamer wanted to look at that, what has happened since this board and this superintendent's been here? They have a roof that was fixed. They have classrooms. They have kids up there. I have not once talked about what are ways that we can shut Hamer down. Not once. And if they're wanting to still hold on to that just because maybe somebody else in the community says, I want to shut it down because Hamer's open, that's a fight between them. And that's something that we can't change. And I don't know how you bring a community together to let people just, link arms and sing Kumbaya.
Well, their kids are linking arms. Why don't they? Their kids.
Their kids are fine.
The kids are fine.
And we need to look at everything that we can do here as an asset. Like so many times, like we see, well, if this group is getting recognized, that means that you hate this group. No, we're all West Jefferson. That's the part that's like, those of you that have had kids, do you love one kid more than another? Don't answer that. It depends on the day. But seriously, like, I think we've gone a long ways. I don't know. And maybe you're right. Maybe we put it on there. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Tanis, on whether it is.
Andrea makes a good point of those that will say, well, then I won't vote for it. That
You gotta
Yeah,
give
it's
them a
probably
bone.
better not to see it on the bond.
I don't know.
But are you gonna have some people say, I
No.
hate gyms, so let's not fix the gym roof?
Well, yeah.
That's the thing, if you have the majority of your student body population that participates in extracurricular activities, it would do nothing but benefit those programs. And it's the one thing that appears that the community really rallies around out here are your sporting activities, because there really aren't a lot of other things to do out here unless you're willing to drive someplace else. And so you have a lot of support and a lot of participation from your crowds that come out to those things. And so if you can improve your programs, why wouldn't it be beneficial?
Can we in some way also make sure that I know like if we do a science room, that's benefiting
Could improve your academics.
that. What else is there that we can do to improve our other extracurricular activities as well in the meantime?
So you include on that bond, not just that building, but you list all the things that are gonna be upgraded. And you say, we're gonna be doing all this too. These other things that aren't marked.
Mhm.
Well, it's no, like we talked about updating the auditorium. That is way past due. And that's another area that you could increase your participation, hopefully, because there are a lot of talented individuals in this area, and it just would allow them to showcase that more.
Yeah, if you list those things, like say we're gonna do
Yeah.
this for the auditorium, then people see all these little things that are gonna be done too.
Yeah.
Whereas when you just say upkeep, they don't see that it's gonna affect
Yeah.
this or this. We're gonna do the art room, we're gonna have a state-of-the-art art room. By the way, curtains cost more than 40,000, don't they?
I don't know. I think there's different places you can get them.
Really
These,
start
a lot of
there.
these things have
Really
been on the list
expensive.
for 5-10 years. And I keep bringing them up.
Needs to be all encompassing.
Because they don't go away, do they?
Well, that's what I
Well,
can
they, yeah,
see,
they don't go, that's the problem, is they never go away.
but I can see that interesting people, if you've got things like that on the list, and you don't just have a new gym, you select it.
Well, you're not just sports oriented.
Right.
It has to be
Yeah.
all encompassing, so
Mhm.
it's your arts, it's your academics, it's your athletics, it's everything that you're trying to improve.
See, that's part of the where I'm coming from is, if you look the last 25 years since I've been here, we've built no new educational facilities,
Mhm.
like the science labs. It's the same lab
Mhm.
that I went to high school, me and Willie went to high school in.
Yeah,
It's
And I-
exactly,
Was it new back then?
No, it was old back then.
it was there when I was there, if that makes you feel
See, I
better.
think that bothers people in the community that we're not advancing on academic facilities.
science stuff, math stuff,
Mhm.
all this other stuff. And I like sports. I played basketball for a lot of years,
Mhm.
but
So that's what you
we've
need.
spent like something like $3-4 million on sports stuff without doing anything else. And I'm not talking remodels, I'm just talking building.
Mhm.
So what if you have science and math out there? Science and a
Well, you
science.
don't know yet how many classrooms you could put in that.
Yeah,
facility.
I'm not-
Oh, you don't,
we might be
that's
able to-
your architecture again?
That's me. You didn't. I'm not hired as an
It's a
architect.
text box.
You get what you pay for on that, right?
And Shane and I could sit down and we could say, this is the footprint we want. we could sketch something out with a reasonable degree of somewhat accuracy, not the engineering part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in how you sell it. That's how it's gonna have to be. If you're gonna go for the big bond, you're gonna have to sell it,
Mhm.
you know, really big.
And
You're
it
gonna
appeal
have
to
to
a lot of
you're
different.
gonna appeal to all kinds of different.
Yeah.
people. Because,
Mhm.
But I think it's okay if you appeal to different sports. If you say you know,
sure,
wrestling room or dance or cheer with the mirrors
Mhm.
or
sure,
you know
Mhm.
appeal to the masses. But
everybody. What would
Okay.
track have to do with that?
There are some facilities that have like an indoor
Indoor track.
track that go up above, like you said, if you have the gym,
Upstairs.
they just have like a
Oh,
place for track to go around.
That's how the old Rigby High School is.
Mhm.
They have it now as middle school.
So they could run all year long?
That's where the wrestlers would run before practice.
Mhm.
And they practice upstairs.
well, and community members,
mhm.
Oh, that'd be great.
because it's cold right now.
I know, it's like to walk, you don't have to go to the mall.
But I do appreciate that the track is cleared off.
I have to go to the Hammond gym.
So, any other questions for Mr. Soderquist while he's here?
What's the feasibility of putting adjustable hoops in the?
It could be done, we just have to find them.
How scary is that?
I have not looked at them, so I don't know.
Where would that be at? Would you think that'd be in the old gym on those brackets? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
No, I think you were thinking over here, right? Or were you
I
thinking
meant
over there?
in the little blue one, but
Yeah.
does the
Over here, I think a suggestion is not to have adjustables over there. Just have two.
Just have them low.
Just have two low ones.
Oh,
yeah.
That wouldn't be
The
too.
problem with having adjustable ones over there, if they don't get put back to the high part after a little kid's game,
Yeah,
you know
Mr.
who's gonna be
Mr. McDonald. It'll be Mr. McDonald doing
yanking
that.
on the rims and
mhm.
I'm saying that because Mr. McDonald is in here for those that are listening to that.
Okay. All right. Well, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Soderquist?
one more thing, I would like to invite all of you together or individually to come and go for a walkthrough sometime. I think before you make decisions like a one, it would be beneficial to come and see what we have. I mean, you may see some things you don't like, but
When can
come
we
and
do
take a
that?
walkthrough. Then you can tell people, we went walking around and this is what we saw. So,
How about community walkthroughs? You know,
I'll take anybody. I don't have a problem.
people need to see. We need to.
Well, when can we do that? That'd be a good idea.
If you're gonna do it in more than a group of two at a time, just let us know, and Mrs. DeGraw will put a quorum, a meeting of a quorum, just to walk around with no decisions being made. And so that's something that we can discuss later and set up,
All right,
as long as it's not a day where it's snowing. No.
that's for sure.
And to take a couple hours. Don't limit, some people have come before, well, I only got 45 minutes. Well, that doesn't get you very far.
Good idea.
Okay,
Thank you.
Larry, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
And the sooner we can make some quasi decisions, some of these things are sensitive. I won't be able to schedule subcontractors if they're already busy. So we're actually a little bit on the later part of where we should be actually.
Okay, so when it comes to that, where these are the proposals, is this something that I don't feel like we need board approval unless the board has a specific thing. We would have to have board approval on big purchases. But I actually would recommend that we just follow what Mr. Soderquist sees fit when it comes to the plant facility. And maybe we could highlight a few of those areas to put a question mark to say, would this fall under the bond or not? And then that could give him the go ahead on certain projects to just say, all right, get a bid on these things and let's roll. And then And then we could put that up to be finalized in a board meeting. Because just so it hits the, that we're following policy on purchases over a certain amount have board approval. I don't know if it needs board direction to say, Larry, this is what you're doing, but it's more board approval. Do you see it any differently, Madam Chair, on that?
I don't know, so I didn't.
And one of the big ones would be, if we are going to redo the art room, then we need lead time for the cabinets.
Could we put that on the bond?
What's that?
Could we put that remodel art room on the bond?
You
to
could.
Make it more palatable.
You could put anything on there, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just, one of the hard parts is that would just push it off for another year
Well, true.
before this summer.
I'm looking for things to entice people to vote for the bond.
You guys can decide whatever you want. You see, none of these
What do you
are,
guys think?
That would be one
It's
that
a
would,
large expense.
it is a large, and sometimes it'd be better if we had a larger expense put onto a bond. And that's one area where, going back to the roof, well, any roof that we have on here, a roof on a bond would be better because it's just a bigger chunk, which saves our plant facility for
For the smaller.
the smaller things that Mr. Sotoquist could just jump on and get.
Well, that $100,000, paint walls, that'd be nice to put that on the bond.
That for the gym.
Paint walls. Well, that's another gym. We don't want two gyms on there. do
That's a
we?
commons area. It's repainting the commons area.
Is it? Okay, so don't put gym.
But it's a facility that has a wood floor and there are some baskets hanging in there.
Yeah,
Don't call it a gym.
those are just extras.
Things like the $500 purchase or the $300.
Yeah, Larry
Those
can
are
just
small things
go-
that
go
help
do
for it.
Just go.
and I just put those in there just because they're things that need to be done.
Just do them.
Right.
Mhm.
And typically I would, and there's been more things on the list that we already crossed off that we already did.
Yeah. So
Maybe
anything.
I should have left those on there to let you see what we've been doing, but
Were they on the old one? The one we approved last year?
yeah, there was lots of things on there that I've already
Okay.
crossed off, but they weren't very much money.
But things like update the boiler control, and that obviously needs to be done, I would say. Is that something you guys do, or do you have to bid that out?
Yeah, we've done it ourselves.
Update fire alarm system seems important.
That's not one of the things I'm gonna do.
Oh, okay. All right.
I would say the things that you have prioritized, go ahead with.
So if you want any more direction, Larry, you and I can meet
Okay,
and we'll go with that and then I'll come back and report to the board.
Okay.
On that one.
Thank you
Perfect.
so much.
Thank you.
you like-
All right. Do we need to take a break, Madam Chair, for a second
I
or?
think we should, and then you would just go check contact.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
So if we could take a recess, are we going to stop the live? For-
Turn off all of the sound and stuff.
Okay. All right. Go check on him. And then if we could jump to policy next instead of school calendar, since we have Mr. Guimar and Mr. McDonald here, there's a couple policy things that need to be brought up. They're not completely the 3000 series, but they do involve students and COVID. So I'll go check on Mr. Burnshaw.
He's okay.
He doesn't look well.
No.
Oh. Maybe he should have stayed home.
No.
Taking over.
Hey. Good, how's it going? Good.
Everything going? Fine, how are you? Haven't seen you for a while. You glad you came back?
That's right. Yes, kid. Hey, you leave us.
Oh, so that's all better for us.
Yeah, well, from high school anyway, we still miss
So when you left, did you recertify, get more education to get the master's over in Boise area or?
I was in Texas.
You went to Texas, I think they went to Texas. Wow,
Crazy, right?
San Angelo.
so did you go into a college to get the
And so,
master's?
yeah, and so I had to do a practicum.
You did.
So I finished it all out.
So was your plan on to
Either-
come back or
You know, kind of
it worked out? to come
We are live.
So you still want to jump to 2-3?
Yes, so Madam Chairs, if we could go to we could jump to 3 and just discuss some policy right now. Then we'll jump back to the calendar. I need to, Madam, Mrs. DeGraw, am I on?
I see you.
Okay. I need to share my, oh, there it is. Share that screen back again. Okay, so for the policy, I've invited Mr. Guimar and Mr. McDonald in. There's been some concerns, and we're not quite sure. That's why we wanted to bring it to a work meeting concerning the third try last year in COVID and the impact on students finishing classes during that time. Last year, the senior class that was here, we had voted to allow them to just not be harmed by any of the impact of COVID. And so there were certain students that were in the senior class that we didn't hold them back, and we allowed them to graduate still. Now, where the next concern is the junior class last year who are seniors, the sophomore class last year who are juniors. There are students in those groups that also were impacted because we've never experienced that before. We didn't know what to do, whether we give everybody just a free pass during that trimester, or do we hold them accountable to somehow make it back up? And that's why I've invited Mr. Guimar. He has some statistics on how many students we're looking at. We don't have student names. And these are the part where I'm not quite sure where to lead this at. Because I'm on one hand, I'm thinking these kids need to be held to a standard. But on the other hand, adults, including our staff members, have had some types of passes per se when it comes to COVID. We have had staff members who have had sick days that weren't counted as sick days because they've had COVID things that were put onto them, like different leave. We've had COVID money that we've been able to give to staff. Our staff hasn't lost any money at all with this, but here we have these kids, and some of them may have been kids that aren't doing the work at all. But some of the kids might be from places that they don't have internet, and so what happens with that is it's been pushed back that they now have to either take double classes or other things. And so, Mr. Guimar, I've kind of set the stage for that. If you want to talk a little bit more, because what we're looking at, and ultimately we're not, again, in a work meeting, we're not coming up with a decision today. This is something that we could decide and put on the agenda at the next board meeting to hold the kids accountable, not hold the kids accountable, have a balance between holding the kids accountable, and everything that we ask to do then on some hand can get pushed back to teachers to say, okay, teachers, what are you doing to help these kids? And that's going to change from teacher to teacher and from student to student and situation to situation. So I don't know what the easiest thing is. So Mr. Guimar, go ahead.
Yeah, do you have that spreadsheet that I sent you?
Yeah, do you want to?
You can bring that up.
Let's see. Where did I have that at?
There it is, that first tab.
Right there? No,
Is that one it?
there it is.
So as we go back and we look at historical grades, what you can see here are the numbers of students for so this year's seniors, last year's juniors, right? So
Yeah.
this is all going off of current grade level. And so the seniors that had at least one class with an incomplete, there were 11 students. Of those seniors, there were 8 of them that had 2 classes, 7 of them that had 3 classes where they had an incomplete, and 3 of them that had 4 classes as an incomplete. And so likewise with the juniors and the sophomores. And you see the number of classes then that we're talking about. If you then, and so there's just a graph that shows
These
how
numbers.
many, what those numbers are. But then the other part of it is if you go up to the table on the right also, as you can see, what we did at the beginning of the year was 7 of those seniors were placed in a study skills class where they could recover that credit. And so they're given that option to just go in, whatever the work was. So you're not retaking the entire class. What you are is you're going to work with the teacher. And this was whether it's first, second, or third trimester of this year. You're going to work with the teacher and make up the assignments that you didn't get in. So you're not completely redoing it. You're just going to you're just going to make that, you're just going to recover the credit through working with the teacher. Well, 4 of those 11, they decided I'm just going to do a packet, or I'm just going to be re-enrolled into a class, and I'm just going to retake it all over. That was a decision that they had made. And then as you look down at the juniors, that was the same thing also. So the juniors, there were 4 of them that said, I'm just going to go into a study skills. 7 of them that said, I'm just going to retake the class. I'll just go in there and do that. And then likewise with the sophomores, there were 6 that were going to do a study skills and 7 that were going to retake it. And then as you can see, there's still 4 that said, I'm not going to even go into a study skills. I'm not going to retake it this year. I'll just do it next year. And so, and that was all their own decisions that they decided to make that way. If you go, and so looking at this, what I was able to put together so far as it relates to the seniors. So if you go to that next tab at the bottom, this is, so at the top, you'll see there's pre-COVID 1, post-COVID 1, pre-COVID 2. So those are the classes. And so if we look at student 1, for example, you have pre-COVID 1, they had only completed 50% of their classes of that class anyways. And so if there were 6 assignments, they had only turned in 3 up until that point. They had only received a passing grade for 3 of those assignments. And so they had 3 Fs anyways. And so as you look at COVID, now they're up to, they went down, and it was at 27% of a assignment completion rate. But there, it's just kind of looking at them and it's thinking, okay, so was it COVID? Well, before COVID, they still weren't turning in their assignments. And so it's hard, and that's where it's hard, because we don't know any of these students, what at home was like during COVID. We don't know, what technology they had access to. And so it kind of is hard, but as you look at that list, you can see with students 1, 2, 4, 5, even, and I should have brought student 7 over, I apologize for that, but even with students 7, 8, and 11, they were already, so that's, out of the 11 students, you're only looking at 4 of them that were already doing well before COVID hit.
And so it's so hard to go back because we don't have teachers or classes on here.
No, and that's one of the reasons I did that. I didn't want to have any identifiers so that we wouldn't not only not identify the students,
but
I don't think that it's fair to then identify the teachers of those classes
because you could look at this white bar here, and you have students that pre-COVID had 100% in, and post-COVID only 14. 100% in, 6%. Now is that 100%, 0%, 100%, 63%? Again, you look at a format where we stopped one day from in-school instruction and went 100% to having our teachers try to do online formatting with the kids. It wasn't fair to our teachers, but and I don't know, this is where I'm so torn. Like, our kids might not have the ability to get credit for this. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but our teachers got paid. I don't like.
What's the difference between pre-COVID
pre-COVID?
one
So
and pre-COVID two?
March.
So that just means the class. So
trimester?
that,
Is that the
well, no,
trimester?
no,
No.
just the class.
That
So
started the trimester. So the trimester started at March, right?
Yes, so this was 2 weeks into the school, into the.
So for the
Oh,
first
okay.
2 weeks, of the
This
class.
is, so it could have been class 1 pre-COVID,
Okay.
class 2.
And
So
then
it
this-
might be like
class
English,
one.
math.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
You could look at that.
They might be
It
different.
could have been those subjects, like I didn't
But
put
that's
any of those.
What you're saying is they're
Yeah,
different
is
subjects.
the pre-COVID
Okay.
one could have been
I
math,
was confused.
pre-COVID
Yeah.
2 algebra,
Okay.
pre-COVID 3.
So that puts us up to
An
the current
elective.
time right now. That's where they're doing, that's how they're doing.
Well, just for
Yeah.
third trimester
Yeah, just for third trimester.
of last year.
Yeah, this is just
Okay.
third trimester.
So that's, yeah, so to go back and just make sure, we're looking at the
Oh,
impact.
this is all last year.
This is the
This is the
impact
third.
of the last
All right,
year.
now we
last
got
of
it.
the year.
Okay.
This is just
So-
third trimester of last
Because
year.
if not, this would be awful.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. They've been in school
And-
since September.
And so that's where we're trying to figure out, how do we, the impact of that third trimester of last year with the COVID for those kids. And trying to catch them up and make them all be assigned to it. And again, it was like, you changed the rules completely right in the middle of it. How do we hold the kids accountable,
Well,
and to what
student-
level?
Look at
So, and
student
then the
4.
other thing is to consider that I didn't put on here is that this just represents current numbers. And so if we were to go back, there were probably 15 to 20 students total. But they've since, they met with their teachers and they were in a study skills class, or some of them didn't even have that. They just worked with the teacher outside of the class. And they just,
And they've caught up.
they turned in their assignments.
Look at student 1. Has he not, or you could say student 1 and 4 and 8, has he just not done anything the rest of that year?
Oh, so the question is on student 1, Mr. Guimar, did
Yeah,
they,
so because they don't have any other, no, so that means that he only had, or he or she only had one incomplete.
so student
For
1
one
actually,
class.
so those that have incompletes in each class,
So though, that means they're up to date. They just have,
yeah, they're,
That
Those
was just
others.
one
so student
incomplete.
1 in this class with the white columns,
Okay.
they're up to date. In the
Okay.
yellow columns, they're up to date.
all right, just,
But in this red class, that's what their pre-COVID and post-COVID
Okay.
scores were.
okay. So if they've done well since then, why can't they go back and make that up?
Well, they can't, they're in a study skills class or they're retaking the class. So all of these students have had the opportunity to be in a study skills class. They've been notified
So
and
who are we worried about then?
Yeah. Are there many students that are behind?
so all of these are, all of these students
Yeah,
are.
that's
all
what I
these are-
mean,
Right
but
now,
if-
we're at you have a quarter of your graduating class.
So that means we would,
Mm.
and that's what we're trying to look at the impact.
But I think that it's important to also recognize that all of them at the beginning of the year and throughout this year have been given like an academic improvement plan where we brought in parents and everybody's been notified that these are the incompletes that you have and what's your progress. Some have even had a study skills 2 trimesters in a row. And so I think that's where it's hard to find that balance. They're seniors, and yeah, they need to graduate, but also, and this was COVID, but for 6 months now, they've known about the that they're behind, that they're missing credits. And so
And 100% of them have a plan or are executing the plan to get caught.
So we're not worried.
Oh, we're still worried.
well, we're still worried because
We're worried until the day of graduation.
So I don't know, kind of she had a question first, because I was gonna ask.
Well, like the yellow class, for example, you have kids that are really excelling, and then all of a
So I
sudden,
wouldn't look at it as classes.
okay,
Those are just so these don't represent classes. So it doesn't mean like 1 is the English class, 2 is the math. It just means that student 1 only had 1 incomplete. These are all different classes,
So-
or some of them could have been the same.
So the ones that I think, so Tanis, one way to ask that, so I might have explained that wrong. Pink is just not a class
No, pink represents just, that's the first incomplete that they have.
for
Okay.
student 6. But So a way to formulate the question, because I can see where you're going. The students that had 100% in pre-COVID
Mhm,
and only have small amounts post-COVID,
mhm.
those are concerning.
Mhm.
Well, is that a teacher issue?
See, that's the thing is we don't
We don't know
Yeah,
what
we
the
don't know.
classes are.
Right.
we don't know. We could go look at that and then say, because on one hand, as a student is going to try to defend themselves saying, I don't have internet at home. I
Right.
couldn't get onto this. I didn't understand it. You're going to have a teacher defend themselves saying, I put it out there. These kids should have known what to do. Nobody should have known what to do
Right.
in that situation. That's the part that's so hard about that is, but then you go, but they have to do something.
That's, to me, that's just it,
Like-
it's the effort. So did an entire class fall behind because the teacher didn't put in the effort? Or did the kids not put in the effort?
Or did the teachers call those kids or reach out to them?
Mhm.
That's the other thing is, like, I don't know that answer, and I'm not trying to like put a teacher up and say, hey, this teacher
No.
didn't call anybody. But I can tell you as a superintendent, and from what I observed, and I have 2 administrators here, some teachers excelled more than others during COVID. Some teachers reached out more to students more than others did during COVID. And whose fault is that? I'm not looking to put a blame or a fault because it was unprecedented. It was something that we put teachers who, none of our teachers went to school to be online teachers.
Agreed, but you have teachers that were FaceTiming every single day, making that contact, getting the packets together, doing all the things, and then you had some that were just
They
MIA.
did nothing. No calls.
And I realized it was unprecedented, I get that, but to
And
make no effort,
And that's the perception that's going on right here with, so how do we hold kids accountable
right?
when it appears,
That the teachers weren't
when it
accountable.
appears that, and that falls back on me as administration, there's nobody else to blame but me on that one. If a teacher wasn't doing what they could have done, but how would we have known?
That's just it.
Mhm.
We couldn't have. Like if I went back to knowing then what I know now, we would have held our teachers to a different
But weren't,
point.
but weren't you saying to your teachers, what are you doing? How's it going? Are you communicating? And weren't they doing that? I mean,
And making home visits.
But not all of them. But not all of them. I think there were some that did, and there were some that did not. There were some that were more willing to come in, and some that weren't. But at the same time, the expectation from us to those teachers wasn't established because it was brand new. That
Is it fair to take the kid that busted their butt and did every assignment and did all their work
you know, that's,
and give Joey over here a free pass when I did all the work? And you're gonna let us both skate through?
Well, I have staff members that from different departments that came to work every single day during COVID. And staff members like our custodial, everybody else, they got paid the same as those that didn't come to school and work. And that's the part where I know I brought that up, but there were definitely unequal things going on. The teachers that did do daily Zooms, they got paid the same as the teacher that had packets that went home. But it's not their fault. The teacher that did the packets did exactly what we told them to do. We gave them the choice. But now looking back on hindsight, if you're like saying what's fair, I don't know. And I don't know what you guys like. Because what we could do is we could come in and just say if the recommendation comes from the high school, we're going to hold these kids accountable, and they're either going to graduate or they don't. And if they don't graduate, it's going to impact our graduation rate, and those kids are going to go down.
Well, it's gonna impact those kids for the rest of their life.
Is that
Are they gonna come back and get their GED? Are they gonna come back and?
some will, some
Like that?
won't?
What, I think the other thing to remember is right now, every single senior has a plan towards graduation. And so I don't think that we're leaving them high and dry. I'm a little tainted by this because I know for a fact there were some seniors who said they're not gonna hold us accountable. And I know they didn't do any of their work. I can think of a
That's not
couple of very
okay.
specific instances where we met, where we phone called, we emailed, you know, and stuff, and I think they just kind of thought, "Nah, not really gonna make me do
But
it."
now they don't think that way, you think? You said they all have a.
I don't know. See, that's the thing.
Sometimes it
where-
makes you wonder a little bit just because of the contact that we've already made. And so some of them, when they told me I'd like to have this packet, for example, I'd like to do, I'm not gonna go back and work with the teacher, I'm just gonna redo the class. So I give it to them, you know, right before break and tell them, go ahead. So actually with a couple of them, some of them. Give them, I'm thinking of some that I gave right before, it was right after Thanksgiving break. So you've got about two weeks to do the first unit. Come and you can take the first test before Christmas break. Well, they bring it back the day that we're letting out. And so one of the good things is Blackfoot Independence High School. They've been really good at these credit recovery packets. At the beginning of the year, I contacted them and just asked them, so what, in the past we've worked with you? And in the past, it was $100 a packet. This year, they said, because we're trying to work with each other, we'll do it for free.
Wow.
And so they just said, we'll send you the packets. You already have them, send them back for grading and we'll grade them and we'll get it back to you. And so with some of these students, I give that to them. And then 2 weeks come, they say, you know, I'm right here, I'm ready for the test. Well, I've got to notify Blackfoot. You know, I thought you were coming in yesterday. I wasn't able to get that test. So go ahead and keep that. You're gonna need to keep that packet over the break and study. And the day you come back, we'll take it. Didn't contact me for 2 weeks almost. And so then it's me talking with them saying, where are you at on this? Like, what are you doing? Oh, I forgot it. I just didn't think about it. And so now we're 3 months after an initial packet was given for the first unit, and I haven't heard anything from them. And it's always me that's going to them. And so that's where I think we're trying to find that line of, well, how do you find that balance of where do we meet halfway? Because right now I'm going more than the halfway. Like, are you you have 3 months left. Are you worried about this?
People who have parents that are behind them, or are they on their own?
Yeah,
Parents?
these are parents that we've had meetings with but we.
I know of one specific parent who just said, I'm tired of fighting my kid. He's just gonna have to learn the hard way.
Well, that's
That's one.
setting that kid up for failure.
So I look
Short
at
term.
that, and I think,
Yeah.
how can we do anything else?
So are there those that are really trying, putting an effort, but just
There are some students that
that-
are really trying.
that just feel like, or that it appears like they are in such a hole that they can't get dug out of, that they've been putting effort in, and I'm wondering.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's hard because some of the problem wasn't only COVID, but they were already behind going into this year. And so now they're already trying to dig out of that and recover that credit. And it's something that could have been, I think, taken care of, but because there's delay, then now we're at this point and now it's finally hit him or her that, oh, I'm now 3 months from graduation. What do I need to do?
Do they probably, some of these students are probably feeling just overwhelmed.
Of those 11, how many would you say it's not looking good? Even though they have a plan, you don't anticipate them graduating.
Hmm.
I would say right now, since they're not done, like for me, almost all of them.
But you don't think they will complete their
Because they're
plan?
not doing anything.
Okay.
They're not progressing. I would say I can think of one student on there that one, maybe two that are like really progressing towards their goals.
So let me ask the question then.
And, sorry, real quick, and 2 of them we knew probably weren't gonna make it anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
So take third trimester from last year. let's say that incomplete turns into a pass on just third trimester, nothing beforehand or anything else that they were already behind on. How does that change this picture?
It goes down to about two or three
So what we're saying is,
students. Yeah, 2 or 3 students.
so our graduation rate really, and that's not so much the rate, but for whatever reason, that third trimester, and you probably have some that are just like what Mr. McDonald said, I'm just gonna sit back and not do anything because I'm gonna get a free pass on this. Takes it from 11 to 3. And so if they would have stayed in during that third trimester the entire time, there's no guarantee that they still would have passed the class, but it would have been a lot less than 11 because they would have been in class, in school, in front of a teacher. And that's the concern that I have, that I don't know. I don't think we can go back and fix things prior to, I'm talking third trimester from last year. And again, today's not the day to make a decision. We can find out what other school boards have done. But I don't know if you, Mr. McDonald, have you talked to some of the others?
Yeah, all the high schools I talked to, we were significantly more patient and flexible. So for example, I believe, don't quote me on this, hate to say it over the air, but I think Ryrie gave them 2 weeks. I think Rigby was about the same. Madison, I think,
Madison had to finish before the year was over.
yeah, and it was pretty strict.
So they had to finish to be able to get their credits, right?
Yeah.
Once last spring ended, once graduation date hit last year, there was no more turning in late work. You got what you got.
Yeah, when the new year started, it was done.
Do you anticipate all of their graduation rates are going to
Sure.
really nosedive this year?
It's probably gonna be statewide, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because of the COVID.
I don't know if there's something that we need to do is in terms of, designating a professional development day or a Saturday or an after-school program to where we just, this is just trying to brainstorm, Do we say you guys need to come in for the next 6 weeks on these days to work on these projects?
And
How about some
complete it?
tutoring?
But if they're not taking advantage of your help now, why would they?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
I
Yeah.
think
keep
the other
doing
thing
more.
too, the other side of this is, of these kids, probably half are gonna go to college, and worst case scenarios, they'll be placed in a remedial math class or something, just like I was. Cause I had been 3 years since I'd taken any math, and so when I took a placement test, it was really, hey, you're in remedial math for a couple of years, and so I don't think that it's gonna be irreparable damage if we do or don't waive it.
Do
You know, I
any of
think
these,
most-
do any of these participate in extracurriculars?
I don't know. I don't know the student.
Well, but if they don't
They
graduate,
wouldn't.
they can't get in college.
Sure. I think there's 2 or 3 of the juniors, sophomores, and seniors. We met with a couple. We met with one to tell him he was ineligible. 2 of them were really close, 2 or 3, and we put him on the academic improvement plan.
So I wonder if that would be an incentive. You can't participate because you haven't completed this. I mean,
That's just now, we do
take
that
something
anyway,
like
don't we?
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they have to be on the academic improvement plan, and have a plan in place and be taking those other classes.
off the top of my head, I can only think of one who probably is playing sports and probably won't make it as a senior.
Because before you mentioned that, I was going to say, definitely for your juniors and sophomores that have the same problem. Could we require them? We can't require them, but could we set up a summer school, some kind of summer school for these kids to catch up so that next year they're not a year behind already before they even go into their next grade?
Yeah, because now what some of them are looking at is they've got, they've got 2 math classes,
Yeah.
2 science
That
classes,
doesn't
2
make
social
sense,
studies,
yeah.
2 English.
It's
So
too
they're
hard.
taking their, English 2B with their, English 3B or physical science B with the physical science B or, whatever those, or repeating an elective.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're,
And to answer your question, yes, there is a program that the state essentially pays for. It's a summer completion program. So it's not summer school where in summer school, generally you go over and just take the whole class over. With this one, you target kids who are around a 45 to 59% and give them extra time with the teacher in the room.
Well, it looks to me like if you don't just hand them a diploma and they don't get one, that would be a chance for them to make that up too.
Yeah.
Why don't we go that
The,
way?
the one question that you'll have to answer as a board is, do we allow them to walk at graduation? Are they allowed to participate in the exercises?
With a blank diploma.
Yeah. In the past, we've done that with one or two cases where there's kind of a special case. My experience generally has been that most of the seniors are pretty good. Now, this is in the Nampa district. Most of the seniors were pretty good at coming back, but not all of them.
But this is their last chance,
Yeah.
is what we're saying, and we're giving them, they can't come back and say, you didn't give us a chance,
Yeah.
because
So-
this is the last chance.
Yeah, the program basically runs from about June to about 4th of July.
Well, to me, for their own good, for the sake of themselves, for the sake of their future lives, I hate to just hand them something. I think they have to
Earn it.
earn it. And I hate to see these other kids, sophomores and juniors,
Yeah, I'm
also have.
not
this
as
kind of-
worried about the sophomores. They have, because we're on a 7-period schedule now, they're gonna have more opportunities.
Okay,
to
but if they
retake.
had that chance to come to summer school and get rid of that burden,
So is that a fair compromise to let them walk at graduation with the hope, expectation that they will come and complete the summer school?
I don't have any
There's
problem
nothing
with
saying
it.
though that they will, and it's just to save face,
Yeah.
really.
But I like that it's not a free pass.
I do too.
That is
I
a
would be,
blank.
I'd be pretty
Yeah.
surprised if many seniors are in that. I mean, right now, most of them are talking 5. You know,
That are what?
that might wind up in that program.
But for those 5 that just haven't even tried, it sounds like you're bending over backwards. It's just not right to hand it to them if they're not going to do anything on their side. If they're just expecting, well, in COVID, we get free money, we get free this, we get free that. Why not a free diploma?
Yeah.
Because that's the way life is. Everything's going to be free for me from now on. You know, that's kind of a mindset. And I'm not sure I want to play into that. Give you something for nothing.
Well, considering when you have students that have worked very hard for that diploma and have spent the time to
Yeah.
complete those
Mhm.
assignments and do those things, to be there with somebody who didn't earn it, that's a hard thing.
So what can we do then? What's the best case scenario for these kids? Like, because I'm open and like I don't have my calendar here in front of me with the professional days coming up. But do we take these kids? Do we complete our professional days with the school early so seniors can come in and work with teachers in the afternoon? You know, like thinking outside the box, like one final pushes. I don't know what some thoughts you guys have had.
We have talked about it a couple of times, and I think my recommendation would be to take it on a case-by-case basis, because we do have some kids that life has dealt them a very serious disadvantage. You know, we have one kid who's homeless. You know, and asking them to complete the same metrics as another kid who's got 2 parents who are home, one of which, you know, has been to college and stuff, is a little, it's not quite apples to apples.
So would it be fair then to the board if we look at these 11 students and we take it on a case-by-case basis, that if there's a recommendation for, instead of granting a blanket free ride for everyone on that, we look at it on a case-by-case basis with a recommendation maybe from Mr. Guimar and Mr. McDonald together as they've counseled with those students? What are your, I guess, what are the thoughts? Because
Well,
what would be a
you
good
do for
plan?
one student, you wouldn't do for the other.
And why would you do for one and not the other?
I don't understand.
Well,
Case by case, it's still, they've got to do something. And even if those that are working, are saying they're going to work on it, but they don't. So how could you do that case by case? I
I
don't know
think
what
that's
you're
where you can
thinking.
make them come to the summer completion program.
Okay, that's what I.
Where is that? Is that on this campus or is it in town or
It certainly could be on campus.
it could be on
There's
campus?
an application you have to apply with the state and you have to find somebody willing to head that program up.
Is that the only option versus them having to come in on every Friday from now until the end of the school year?
No, it's
That
not the
work?
only option. It's an option, but that's maybe not a bad idea either.
I mean,
And we
we
could
do
even,
have Fridays out.
and we could even look at
occasionally.
like 2 Saturdays too, if we wanted to. We have a teacher who could come in and if they have different little packets to work on and go towards that.
Then are we paying a teacher because you weren't willing to put in effort?
A little bit. A little bit,
But you'd
I'm
be
not
paying somebody
opposed.
for summer then.
yeah.
Well, unless it's that program that,
That summer program, is that funded by the state?
Well, sounds good to me.
it just seems like, especially, I mean, you guys have been bending over backwards and they're not taking advantage of it. I'm not opposed to meeting with 11 of the students and saying, plead your case.
Okay.
Tell me your situation and I'm not opposed to that, but if they've had every opportunity here and they're not.
So I guess this discussion will give Mr. Guimar, Mr. McDonald a direction to go towards. Because on one hand, we needed to let the board know this is a problem. We have this many students that are going to be impacted as of right now. But as Mr. Guimar, they can meet with it, they can say the board's not going to waive everything because we've had this, and this in place.
And if you were in another district, it sounds like they would have taken a lot harder line
Yeah.
than you'd be done for already. So,
No mercy.
I don't want to say that either.
Mercy is for the weak. This is
I
what we
guess-
don't have
I
training
guess
in.
so.
I don't know, is that too harsh?
No.
Okay.
It is not.
I mean, you want everyone to succeed. Yes, that's the whole intent. But at the same time, they have to learn that in order to succeed, you have to put forth the effort required to get to that point. If you take that away, then they've learned nothing.
Just where's the next free handout?
Okay. Does that help answer the questions, you guys, for that?
Yeah.
So that's the first one, and the second one would be the graduation requirements, which also are similar to the same, or the senior project requirements are similar to that. So,
I do like that they have the previous summer to work on it. It's not just a last minute thing. I like that you guys are starting that early. That's great.
is there anything else then as we move forward with graduation requirements or senior projects? I invited Mr. McDonald and Mr. Guimar just so that the board could get an idea of where they're at and they could receive a little bit of direction from the board. Any other questions, Mr. Guimar, or anything that?
I don't think so.
How many Ds can you get and still graduate? Is that a counting grade?
Yeah.
That counts.
You could all get these
D
and
minus, you
graduate.
can get it. Okay, so no excuse to me, no excuse. That's, D minus is the least effort you can give, and giving any effort at all. So,
Yes, that probably the only other things are just the credit recovery for the year-round math and English.
Mhm.
And so maybe that's a future conversation,
but I also want you to look into having a summer school for these sophomores and juniors, because I feel like if they can get that burden off their necks,
Yeah.
then school won't be so hard for them.
We won't be
It's
having the
really
same
hard.
conversation.
Yeah, keep them from getting so far behind.
And that might be something that even some of the COVID money coming in this next time could be used.
Mhm.
So as we get closer to that, Mr. Guimar, Mr. McDonald, looking at credit recovery for secondary students, whether we have packets together for a summertime run and we hire 1 or 2 teachers, even though theirs might not be their subject area, to be able to have something like that in place.
Are there some teachers willing to come in to help these kids? Like on, say, Fridays or maybe even a Saturday?
Yeah, it's not been a problem. It's fine. A couple of teachers, Mrs. Parker, Mr. Orr, both done some things like that on Saturdays. and
Yeah.
stuff.
You know, it might cost a little extra money for these teachers on their pay, but it's worth it to try to save these kids.
And I don't think on a Friday, if we said some of the meetings in the morning and then from noon to 3, that won't cost you anything.
It
We just
looks
have to
like,
protect that
So they're
time
already
for
there.
teachers.
so we have this Friday is the first one, and then we have 3 more for the rest of the year. Just because in the 3rd trimester, the way that the numbers work. But that could be something, if you wanted to move on that already, we don't have to vote on it. Just have the,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Let's keep rolling, Madam Chair, if we could, on the policy. Oops, I'm on the wrong one. The 3000 series, which are all students ones. So, any final thoughts on that after they left at all?
I feel good about that.
Yeah, I feel good that the kids can come in and try to catch up on a Friday or
Plus they're
Saturday.
getting their
And
self-respect back.
that's why this type of conversation, again, whether there's not a voting decision that we didn't make, but it's just kind of getting the feedback on what direction do we go. Because with some students, they might have been just holding on to say, well, what will happen? But you know what? There will be an impact on our graduation on our amounts. The board is fully aware of that after this discussion. That allows us to just move forward and have a direction to go. Say, you know what? If you don't make it, you don't make it. But we will continue to help you, even though it might reflect negatively on some metrics for the district, but it is what it is.
It's a COVID year. Anything is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If we can just get ourselves back on track
Yeah.
with this summer school and other things we're doing, then this year isn't going to make, it's going to be the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Going to have these same problems.
Perfect. So in the 3000 series, Mrs. DeGraw, do you want to explain a little bit on how you've got this updated? Do you want to come sit in the spot? Or no?
No. I walk in there when I have to hand you something. So we have our 3000 policy. It's in a clickable PDF. This is how all of our policies will be presented to the public from now on. These are the policies that you guys looked at last month. The second set of policy that's on our board docs is the packet that I gave you guys. I was discussing with ISBA the required policies. We had admitted the Title IX sexual harassment section. And so we have that and the procedures for Title IX. And those are required to have. The procedures are long, but it makes it so that we're following and protecting people who are victims of sexual harassment and people who are accused of it. The third policy that we have in there,
In this one?
in this section, is the student personal communication devices policy. And then the next 2 policies are about accessing the school's network and the rules regarding that. The personal communication devices, we do need the board to specifically look at.
Is that in this packet?
It is. It's
To the last page.
3265.
Down to the last page.
It's like one of the last pages. It's on the back of one of them. Keep going back,
One
Mr.
more.
Williams.
3270p.
No, 3265. So keep going.
Okay. Better.
You went too far.
it's on the back,
I see it.
right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
There.
So it's not a long policy,
Yeah, it's pretty short, isn't it?
but it's specific and it gives the teachers some ground to stand on.
So did the ISBA help you,
All of
help
these,
write this up?
yeah, all
Yeah.
of these are,
Yes, we did do a major edit to this one because it was very outdated.
Oh,
It included walkie-talkies,
pagers.
pagers,
Oh.
hand radios,
Which
like,
nobody even uses anymore.
right.
Yeah.
And so we've made it more general to cover everything.
When you had the PAW meeting.
Yeah.
Did you feel like everybody in there was of one voice, that they all thought, please do something?
I felt like that.
Did you? did too.
The hardest part it's gonna be is, and this was coming from the parents saying, well, then I'm guilty because I text my kid during school all the time.
Right.
Like every single parent that's there
Mhm.
will text their own kid.
Mhm.
And so we are going to have some parents upset about this, but I think it's gonna be one of those things that boundaries need to be established
Mhm.
for the phones.
I've heard concern is mainly on the playground. So that, taking them out of classrooms doesn't do anything for that.
Well, we could take action beyond this if we need to. But then again, will we have parent support?
I don't know.
There's a lot of TikTok going on the playground with phones. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
So
In elementary.
explain TikTok then, like what is, because that's like,
It's beyond you.
it's beyond Snapchat, I guess. So-
It's,
Well,
Videos,
So the-
watching videos
Yeah,
and
well, it's, you know.
creating videos, that sort of thing. The
Mhm.
problem is on personal devices, you don't have the restrictions that you do through your school internet access.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so there's things that come through on those devices that no one is really aware of. If parents haven't put limitations
Mhm.
on those phones, and I don't know how many really do.
So a parent using their own data and they have full data for their kids,
Yeah,
that's 100%
Oh.
true. That doesn't go through our filter system.
no,
Right.
so
Yeah.
there may not be a filter, and even those who send their children without a phone, they are exposed to things that a friend might pull up on a
Sure,
phone.
they're showing them all the time,
Yeah,
videos.
so that's a concern.
So that concern is addressed in one of those policies.
Where does it say that?
Following that,
About playground, on the
not
playground?
necessarily playground, but about personal devices.
But-
If you're using a personal device with personal
How are
data,
you gonna track that out on that?
you're still responsible to abide by the guidelines and rules that are set up if you're here on school property.
But it's not working.
But how do,
It's not
How do you
happening.
enforce it?
how do you
That's the
enforce
question.
it?
Well, that's,
That's, is that my
So-
job? Figure it out.
well,
You have to educate parents on what the policy is. And if they are sending those devices to school with their student, then they need to have a discussion with the student on what policies are.
Or is it,
And then they shouldn't be shocked if a teacher comes and says, hey, I need you to go put your phone away right now.
is it better to say, we just don't, no phones? That's the part, is like, how do you find a middle ground without just going completely down and saying, we're not gonna see your phone? And that's the part where I'm not sure where parents are gonna be at.
Because I want kids to have phones for after school activities in
But-
case they need a ride home
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
need help in some way. But during
But not
school,
school
why do they
hours.
need it?
Mhm.
If they have computers to do their work on, why do
They
they need to
don't.
look
It's
up
just
on their
simply a
phone?
distraction.
It is.
And it's not only a distraction for them, but it's a distraction for their other peers that are around them.
Oh, it's terrible to see all converge and, yeah.
I mean, life is possible without a phone.
but the concerns that you're bringing up, these kids are smart enough to work around even our filters. And if they want to access that kind of stuff, they will figure out how to do it,
But they'll be doing it on the Chromebooks instead of just the
right?
cell phone.
It's just the personal device that we're concerned with.
But
Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to play the devil's advocate that I agree, those things aren't good. You don't want your kids seeing them. but we're kind of in an age where we need to educate.
So where does the boundaries, how do we educate and have a boundary? I guess that's the question where I don't know if it really needs to be policy, or maybe I just need to go down into procedures stricter, that we have these policies built in. But then we say 9th through 12th, this, or 7th through 8th, this is what your rule is. Elementary, we don't see a phone ever, unless it's before school or after school. And
Parents can call them on the school phone.
isn't that crazy? They can.
They used to do it.
Well, do teachers now, can they tell their students to turn the phones off
They
during
can.
class time?
They can. The difference is some teachers allow it more than others. And it's just like different families, different parents, they do different things. And as this came up, again, it's came up in the PA meeting, and with everything else that we're working on, I haven't had a chance to really dive into this issue and dive into the pros and cons of where we want to go. But I think we do explore this. I think we explore this to come up with some, whether it's policy or whether it's procedures, to come in and say, this is exactly what we want to do. But I agree with Andrea that I think they're more of a distraction at times. With things, because just but it's not, here's the thing is, it's not just our campus now. We have situations where something will be put on from somebody from a different campus. And now, like back when I was in school, I only had to worry about the interactions of people there. And it wasn't until the weekend when we went to Rexburg, we got to see the kids from other schools,
Yeah.
But there has to be a balance, like Mrs. DeGraw explained. We can't just come in and just take it completely away from all students at all times, because there has to be that balance. But I think that as long as we're addressing that, I'm not sure, like, it sounds like Andrea.
Could they bring them to school, but keep them, away?
How about keeping them in their backpacks, you think?
Just not use them till after school in case they need rides home or something.
It could. I don't know,
I don't know.
but it's going to be in their pockets, and each generation has adapted. I don't know. Andrea, were you on the T9? Did you ever?
I didn't have a cell phone
You didn't have
until
one,
I
so
graduated college.
see.
That's when I got my first cell phone, the same year I
Yeah.
got married.
So we don't understand. We don't
So,
understand.
That's why I'm
I
like,
got my
there's
first
life
one when I
without a
was
phone,
60.
you can't do things. But I just don't see, if you're sending your student to school, they should be at school.
Yeah.
And why are they messing around on the phones
Mhm.
in the first place? I don't think it's a bad thing to just keep it in your bag. That still provides the opportunity to make a phone call if necessary.
I think it's entertainment
Yeah.
for one.
Sure it is.
Mm-hmm.
Entertainment, and then the other one would be just social.
Yeah.
Back to entertainment and back and forth, with probably 1 or 2%. I get to use a calculator on there.
I've heard the complaint from one of my daughters that there's nothing to do at recess because all of her friends are looking at their phones.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to talk because they're busy looking at their
It's
phones.
ridiculous.
And it's like,
And they
I
do
know.
too. They're all
How's
gathered
that
around.
helping the kids?
why have recess if you're just gonna stand
Supposed to be
there?
out running and jumping and.
Yeah,
playing
physical.
ball. Yeah.
Physical entertainment.
Well, we can definitely explore that as the procedures, but I think these policies will at least set up the groundwork from the 30,000 foot
Yeah.
mark. But then I think we can discuss procedures at the building level, that we can have those. But the feedback from the board is going to be appreciated, and the PA meetings will continue with
I'm
that.
interested to hear what they say at the PAL meetings and where parents are at, I guess.
Sure seemed like
Maybe
they
we're
were
out in the
all
field.
on board with getting rid of them.
Yeah.
Everybody that was there, they just didn't like it. And I know why, because I'm hearing from people saying, you should see the videos they see at recess.
They're bad.
Oh, it just
like,
makes me
I-
sick.
I don't know. We can't control it. I don't think all of them are bad, but that's the thing, is some of them are probably like a funny thing for the kids to see. But I worry about that. I worry about that for my own kids.
Mhm. There's a lot of bad out there.
but it's also not ever gonna go away. And I think that's the thing that parents,
Let them do it on their own time. Let them do it.
at their own house.
Their own
Yeah,
house.
not on
Yeah.
campus.
Yeah.
So can we set up a procedure where we require the teachers to tell the students that they gotta turn their phones off during class
I don't
time?
think they even take them in there.
Not to even have them in the classroom?
Because if they're in there, they'll find a way to get them
They'll find a
on.
way.
Yes.
They find a way to do it. I was teasing about T9 because I think my younger sister, they would be able to, like, they had it memorized in their brain where to text, like by not even looking at the screen. That back when you had to push the button 3 times to get an S or
Oh, that like a Morse code, huh?
like the Morse code. Like, I know it's
The classroom's for instruction and it needs to stay for
Mhm.
instruction. So.
Yeah, classrooms for academics, not entertainment.
well, and here's the thing: is if they do have it, they need to be stricter because there can be some where they do have the phone and they use it for instruction. They really can. Some things like the Kahoot app, and there are plenty of other apps to do it. But I'm wondering the percentage, how much of it really is academic.
Very little.
And this is my, this is an iPhone 8, so not as much as so this is an $800 calculator, really.
Yeah.
Do we need that? But so, any other thoughts or questions on policy as we've gone through with the different things? Mrs. DeGraw, anything else that needs to be maybe brought up?
Well,
We are having Jody review these electronic ones to make sure that the things that we say we're going to do as a district, we are doing, and that the things that we're asking the students not to do in those things, so the things we're putting in there are compliant with what we are or able to do. So we are having him review those.
I hope we have a strong firewall.
I was
Well-
wondering on policy
What number?
3000, page 2 and 3, what constitutes a potentially dangerous school? And it says they could transfer to other schools in the district. It really doesn't apply to us, does
No.
it?
It doesn't really apply to us, but because a school could be classified as dangerous, and that would be from a State Department level kind of thing.
Yeah. What was that? 3,000?
The first one.
3,000.
And then toward on page 2, the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3, it
bottom
talks about
section.
Oh, from a persistently dangerous schools. There has to be a
we really don't have a different.
federal definition or state definition of,
It's really,
In some of those
it's really doesn't
legal
even pertain to
references,
us.
is that's where it would reference
Yeah.
that.
persistently dangerous under federal law.
Then you have to change to another school in the district and we don't have another school.
Yeah. But as this is part of,
It's what we
State.
need to have.
yeah, they need to have that in
Still
there.
required to have
Okay.
that.
All right. Okay.
Other questions or thoughts from? I do know, oh, go ahead,
Oh, I did have a question on 3040.
3040.
When your county, it says every child must attend school. So when you have homeschool kids, do they have to come in and check with you?
No,
Well, why don't they? So your responsibility to see
not
that
state
every
law.
child is. Here you have a policy that says every child has to go to school.
But it doesn't define what the school
so
is.
this is how I understand it. The Board of Trustees is responsible for the education of all school-age children within the district boundaries
Right.
that choose to come. That's the difference. So we can't exclude anybody. I think this is what it's saying, is that we can't be exclusionary.
Okay.
But if a parent chooses to do a homeschool, it's not forcing them to come.
I just know that in Utah, they had to come and check in and they had to bring,
And
they
that's
had
state
to
law.
show us that
That's
they were
proof
up to
that-
par, that
yeah.
they were.
They're
But we
showing
don't do
proof.
that in
No.
Idaho.
No, homeschool students, they still sign up to take a test. Occasionally, we could get a homeschool student that comes and takes the ISAT as part of their homeschool requirement. but really it's not pushed onto the school district to follow up with those kids.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because on one hand, by having this, the school district, it'd be able to maintain the at least comparable standards on that.
And we don't have we don't know whether, oh, a
Sorry.
concert. So we don't know whether they're up to standard or not.
No,
That's too bad. Okay.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure we review policies annually that needed to be, so
Yeah, and
I've
we'll
already
make sure
got
that
that. Okay.
Thank you, Carrie.
that, so we're back. We kind of jumped around the agenda
A
today,
little
Madam
bit.
Chair. So I know that we took care of 2.1. We've just finished 2.3 unless there's any other thoughts. We talked about 2.5 already with the maintenance projects. I could just say the supplemental levy, the only thing I want to bring up is that we do have the vote going out on March 9th. Julie is working on getting the flyers sent out. That's all that I wanted to bring up for that. So we really only have 2.2 remaining on that, unless there's any place else, Madam Chair, that you wanted to go to or revisit.
I don't think so.
So for the school calendar 21-22, after the last board meeting, and also after the PAW meeting, I put together a draft option 1, a draft option 2, and then after the PAW meeting, I came up with a draft 2.1. Let's see, Mrs. DeGraw, are you able to pull up the last? Actually, I'll pull it up here on this one. What the teachers were voting for.
That form.
Yeah,
Have
I can
copies.
pull it up.
can you pull it up?
Be nice to have copies so we can see how they differ.
Let's do that for you.
Whether side by side.
That was one thing I didn't. I can print these off right now. So 2.1. We'll have Mr. H go and pick these up off the copier for us, if you wouldn't
Bring
mind.
right to work.
2, 3, 4, 5. There's gonna be about 10 of them coming out, so different batches, Mr. H.
Okay.
I'll just do 2 and 2.1, because I believe that's where the people are, at least the teacher input and even the parent input is leaning towards. Put those off.
Mr. Williams, if you go to your message on your computer, I've just texted you the link. So it'll
Okay.
open right to it.
Thank you. Hope it came up and then it left. I'm gonna stop screen share for a second. All right, Mr. H is gonna bring those in. So Nedra, you listened to the PAW meeting. Are there? Let's see. Goes down. Just pull it up on the. Yeah. Just the responses. Right there. Okay. I'll go back to share again. Oh. So I'm pulling that up. So we surveyed the teachers and staff and only 23 responded, but we sent it out to everybody, to all the teachers and the staff. But out of that 22, so 95% were in favor of option 2.
Is that the one with 5 days of spring break?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, if you hover over the balloon,
Starting on a Wednesday.
it'll tell you how many.
No. Well, that was starting on a Wednesday, so that started the conversation
But then
first,
you adjusted that.
and then I adjusted it after pause. So
So are
that's
there more contact days?
so there are more contact days on that. So Mr. H is bringing these in. So I have option
We only
2.
had one teacher one staff or teacher that voted for option 1 and 22 that voted for option
Yeah.
2.
Mm.
Be nice to know what the rest of them want. I didn't understand.
So one of the biggest things when I started looking at option 2, as this number is kind of shown where more people want to go.
Are you on option 2 right now?
Yeah, I am. The regular option 2.
Mr. Williams, do you need a copy?
No, you can hold on to that. So the parameters on this calendar had 52 days each for each trimester. For 156 days. That was just me initially trying to find a balance between the trimesters. There was no particular rhyme or reason. It was just, this is what we could do. I took that 156 days to calculate that into the state requirements, just to make sure that any calendar that we do present meets all of the state requirements. And so everything that we've looked at does meet that. Some of the concerns that came out from teachers on the survey is they wanted to have parent-teacher conference earlier, or at least in the middle of the trimester, which definitely makes sense.
Mhm.
Reason why I pushed it back is because the last year that we've done it, we've always had a conflict with either state volleyball or district volleyball, where then we have parents or teachers who are also parents who aren't available at parent-teacher conference. And we saw the exact same thing on this last parent-teacher conference last week. Initially, when we scheduled it, we didn't have a high school basketball game, but because of COVID, we had to reschedule a game, and it fell on that. And so we again had some teachers who are involved as parents or coaches who weren't able to be there. And so as the teacher said, is there any way we can change this to move it? So I asked the parents during PA meeting, and so the reason why I first put it here was thinking that it was between basketball season and volleyball season and wouldn't have an impact on football season. But the downside of that is it's only a couple weeks away from the end of the try. I said, well, if I put it up here closer to potato harvest, it doesn't make sense to have it right after potato harvest, where you've come to school for 4 or 5 weeks, took a 2-week vacation break or work break, and then come right back to it. So one of the parents asked, is there any way you can have it right before? And if it was before, then that way, at least you could have packets or anything that if kids were needing to work on during harvest break or wanted them to, it would be a good time to do that. So I thought that was a good suggestion from the PA meeting on that. Another one with this too that there were some concerns about is with a full week of Thanksgiving, which has its pros and cons, and this was discussed during the PA meeting, some people are going to take the 22nd and 23rd off regardless.
Because they're going to
But-
maybe travel.
But here's a theme for the whole year. People are going to take off whenever they want. They're not going to plan their lives around the school schedule anymore. Like that isn't how it works. So we have families that are going to take their kids out in the middle of January, February to go to Hawaii every single year, no matter what, because that's just what they do. And so is that wrong of them? That's just the reality. That's just the reality of what we deal with. And so my thought was that if we had that there, we can end the trimester on that 2nd of December. So, but I got that request, and so I looked at that. So what would it take to move from the full Thanksgiving break to that second one? And it's right or wrong because it's going to be hit and miss. Some people are going to want a full week of Thanksgiving. Some people aren't. So as I go to, do I have option 2.1 on both of them? No, I don't. So here's option 2.1. To do that, we would have to change the start date of school from the 25th to the 23rd. And I would propose that we start with a half a day of school instead of a full day, just to get in and get procedures down. And you can see that also on your 2.1.
Do you do a back to school night?
We don't
anywhere?
have a 2.1.
So the back to school night
Oh,
could
it's over
happen
here, isn't
that
it?
afternoon. It wouldn't happen before.
Are back to school nights effective?
It depends on the grade level. I think they're very effective for elementary. where the kids can come in and get to see
Familiarize.
the classroom. But if we use that first day as a way to get familiarized, I every time I've had a back to school night, and I've done this a couple times with my starting schools in my previous district, when I was able to have a come meet your teacher night before, the first day of school ran so smooth. Like if not, there's a little bit of unknown of where's my teacher, where am I going? Maybe we won't get that out here as much. We could look at that and have a come meet your teacher day on Friday if we wanted to during the school day, something like that. There's ways that we could do that around it. It's just I'm not sure what's always the best, but starting those 2 days earlier allows us to be done by the 23rd. And the other thing that I changed with 2.1 is the first Monday of potato harvest is a parent teacher conference that is just open all day long from 8 to 6. That would count for 1.5 teacher contract days on that. But the teachers, one thing that's different that we haven't done is the whole campus is having parent teacher conference at the same time all day long, which we haven't done. It's always been elementaries all day long. And then we, this last year, tried to squeeze secondary in. And that made it a little bit difficult for some parents.
It might make it a little easier to meet with the secondary teachers because sometimes the lines get so long in the limited amount of time that you have available that you're never able to meet with certain teachers because you don't have enough time to stand in line and wait for them.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that was as we move forward, another difference with 2.1 compared to 2.2 is we actually do gain 3 more days on 2.1, just with the way that where things fall. And there's 52 days in the first trimester, having the last day be the 23rd before Thanksgiving. We would still have our board meeting on the 18th in the afternoon.
Like
we,
that.
we can hand that out. The second trimester would give us 55 days, just being able to pick up a couple more days at the beginning of end of November, 1st of December. By doing that, we would be able to put the next parent-teacher conference on Monday the 17th, which is Martin Luther King Day. We don't have to have school that day, but we could have a teacher contract day. We will not have any activities or sports going on during that time. So we found 2 places that we can have dedicated completely to parent-teacher conferences.
It's a unicorn.
On that. And so, yeah, that's one way to do that. The teacher professional days will still be mixed throughout. I could leave it on the 28th, like put it on the 4th. There's not really a hit or miss on that. It's just trying to spread them out where it's either every other week as much as possible. But then we would be completed with the first trimester on Thursday the 3rd, which would be a half a day to end the trimester and then go into that. Now the third trimester is back to 52 days. And to fit it in between with a full spring break and be done by Memorial Day, we only have the 3 professional days with 2 weeks between, 2.5 weeks between.
Do you have a parent-teacher conference third trimester?
We don't this year, and there's pros and cons with the third trimester parent-teacher conferences. We could put one in there somewhere. Part of it is it takes away a teaching day. The third trimester one, and there's pros and cons to this. Maybe we need to have one for secondary. I don't necessarily love having one for elementary third trimester. My experience with that is that you weren't really talking about the kid, but it became a more of where are we going to put the kid next year? And it created a situation, at least when I was a principal. Now I have a parent come in and say, which teacher do you want? And maybe it was different in mine one. And then it becomes a situation. It's really not the teachers that have your students will give a recommendation to Mr. Harrelson on where to place the kids. 100%. Mr. Harrelson doesn't go in with this magic 8-ball, even though I've seen him with it, and see where do I put this kid at for this at. It's very strategic on where we place kids in which class. Parents can always ask for a recommendation. They can always go and, or ask for, or can request. But what we found is what I found is it became just a situation where don't go to that teacher, go to this teacher and go to that teacher. And then those teachers hear about that later on.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering of the effectiveness for secondary, so that, and maybe it's communicated elsewhere, that a parent is aware of where their student stands at the end of their freshman year or their sophomore year, so that they're not surprised that, oh wait, my kid's behind.
We could turn one of these professional days into a secondary parent-teacher conference. And I'm thinking like May 6th might be a good day where it's, hey, we're 2 weeks away from your kid going to high school next year. That's not a bad suggestion.
Is that too late though? I mean, you've only got 2 weeks left.
Or would you do it like the 15th of April?
To do that.
So that, you're partway through, you've got a couple more weeks, just so parents are fully aware if they're.
So they know that their taxes are due and they've got a parent-teacher conference.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've got 4 days to be.
Right?
Well, because I see that parent-teacher conference more for the next year.
Yeah.
Like if there's that 2 weeks may or may
It's
not.
okay to have it.
Because if you have it too early, sometimes those kids that are in 8th grade, all of a sudden they think they're a freshman already for the last 4 weeks. The seniors, they forget that we still have to come to work and still do things. This is our process. But that could be something that we could easily say teacher professional day / secondary parent teacher conference.
Just see if it gets utilized, I suppose, for that purpose.
Yeah,
Boy, you did some great changes on that.
well, it
Kinda
wasn't
answers
just
all the
me, it's
problems,
because
doesn't it?
I'm really looking and trying to hear and just do the best we can with it.
When you say half day, what time are you thinking for release?
I think around 1 o'clock. So we have to have 4 hours of instruction. And that was one thing that came up in our admin meeting yesterday. And I'll look at that at lunch, but you have to have 4 hours of instruction in place before it can be counted as a half a day. And I've looked at that, and if we are out by 12:40, I believe that we are able to have our secondary go through every single class with the exception of mentoring. So we just go in and do 40-minute periods for the 6 classes with the exception of mentoring. It gives you 4 hours of instruction. That should count as a half a day. Then we could release, and kids could go to lunch and then go right on the bus. And so buses would be leaving by 12:50, 1 o'clock to be heading home. So your elementaries would come in, they'd have shorter, to get their 4 hours of instruction, they'd have different activities going on, but they would be ready to go by that time. So between 12:45 and 1 o'clock is when the buses would load to leave.
And that's what you're suggesting for the first day. It's just
I'm
a
thinking that
4-hour
might be
day.
easier to transition into that.
And then have your kindergarten start 100% on Tuesday, the 24th.
Or maybe they all come in on one day and just walk through. I don't know. Haven't thought about kindergarten. That's something I need to make sure I look
would
at.
have them just do Tuesday and let them come in on Monday after.
Or Monday could be the kindergarten open house. Is another thing to look at.
Okay. Not that I have a kindergarten next year. But
Yeah, but that's a good. So all the half days would have to be looked at with kindergarten. Do we have them come in? Do we have them not? Are the later ones a kindergarten blended day where they only identify the kids that they really need to come in? Those are different things we can look at. I don't have any other blended days proposed on 2.1, but we could do it with kindergarten. I don't think we need to do it with others. We could use that last day of each trimester as, I don't want to call it an attendance final, or just if you've already completed it, that could be an extra day for blended learning on those last days of the trimester for the whole, basically for the, I'd say the whole district. So yeah, so if I did propose 2 blended days, it would be the last day of the first 2 trimesters, but not the last day of school.
I see you managed to get that 5-day spring break in there.
Well,
It's
Is that bad?
that's kind of what everybody
Well,
wants.
if you look at it, you go to school for 5 weeks and then you're out for 2. And then you go to school for 6 weeks and you have partial week off. And then you go to school for 3 weeks
yeah,
and then you're out for a week and a half. And then you have a long haul and you go for 11 weeks and then you get a week off.
Mhm.
And then you have 8 weeks or something like that. And then you're out of school.
People want that 1 week break.
I think,
I
you
think
know,
they do.
when you realize when people are typically the most sick, it's January
Oh,
to May, and you only have one week break in there.
yeah,
That does kind of help.
it does.
It's
It
a long
breaks.
haul there after you've had so many continuous breaks in the fall.
Yep.
yeah, and I
So
January and February are really long for the teachers.
it's a long time of year anyways because it's just
Well,
dry.
yeah,
Just
you're
a dry
depressed
time.
because of the winter, right?
So
I don't know, I just heard from several parents that said, that's when we take our vacation, and I'm thinking, I'll just throw it out to you, you know. I like
in
it.
January
I
or
think it looks
March.
good. In March. I think it looks, I like it.
Any other suggestions from the board? And I'll probably go through, just make sure I fine tune before one's voted on. I do have either, all 3 of these have a 3-year window built out onto it. And so I could have all 3 of them on there. Ready to go.
On the total contract days, you've got 182 and needs to
Yeah.
be changed to 178.
Oh, thanks. So with this, we also asked the teachers what they would propose to do. So our current contract for teachers is 182 contract days. That's at 7 hours and 50 minutes per day. And I don't know the history of why our district is at 7 hours and 50 minutes. I have no idea why that's what it is. So I took 182 and times it by the 7.83 hours a day. And that equals 182 days. But if I did an 8-hour work day, it equals 178 days. And so on the 182 day contracts, that equals 1,425 teacher hours for the year. If we go to an 8-hour day, it's the same thing as 1,424 teacher hours a day. So basically it's an approximate wash, but it just pushes us to an 8-hour day instead of a 7 hour and 50-minute day, which makes things a lot simpler in the business office
right.
when it comes to calculating sick leave and everything else. And
Yeah.
so overwhelmingly, the teachers are in favor of doing that
To the
So-
8-hour, right?
to the
Yeah.
8-hour.
Yeah.
So if this is voted on, I will plan for 178 teacher days just from the indication, but when we do negotiations with the teachers union or association, we will come and say, from your survey, this is what we indicated, this is the calendar we have. We will just make sure that we make that change in the master agreement.
Mhm. And I'm sure they'll accept that, okay?
Yeah, and then that way it's 178 day contract instead of 182.
So that brings up another question. You did a survey amongst employees. Were we going to talk about that today, or
For what survey again?
who was planning to return?
Oh.
You need to speak up.
No,
Sorry.
yeah, we have the kids at recess. So I did send out a survey. That's something that in executive session I'll bring up on that one.
Oh, okay. That'll be-
Because we
for
did
next
send out the
week.
staff survey. We did have some indications of teachers who are not coming back. They weren't surprises. We knew about it before, but that's going to allow us to open those positions up right now and get those posted.
Mhm.
And so I'll be able to bring the board up to date on
Yeah, the sooner
that.
the better, where you got more time to. check over applicants.
Okay, other questions or suggestions? I like the suggestion, Andrea. Thank you for,
Yeah,
do you have that written down for me, Carrie, to look at parent-teacher conference third try?
So are we voting on this month?
next week.
Fine. And that's 5:30.
We did a 5 o'clock start. We want to,
Safety meeting.
we want to meet at the safety meeting. How I want that to work is I've talked with our administrative crew and also some of the things from the PAW meeting. We want to come in and just highlight some of the things that we've been working on, and then use that safety meeting also for a time for the board to direct us to say, focus in on these things here. And maybe it's gonna be more on the phones and whatever leads us to that focus. The purpose of that is to not come up with a finalized plan at all. It's just to make sure that all of the people that are involved, my administrators, supervisors that are invited, and Deputy Keller, we can all be there together.
Super.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair.
Great. Well, if there's no further business, if we're looking for a motion to adjourn,
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
those in favor?
Hi.
All right.